folks like to get away, take a holiday from the neighborhood, have a flight to Miami Beach or to Hollywood, yes they do. For me, I'm taking a Greyhound on the Hudson River line. I'm in the New York state of mind. I've seen all the movie stars in their fancy cars and their limousines. A bit high in the rock.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We are live on the Knock 'em Dead Comedy Radio Show, coming at you live from govsradio.com, home of Governors Comedy Club here in Levittown, the world-famous Governors in Levittown. Thank you for joining us nice and early this morning, 9:30. We have some very special guests here, as you guys know, on this, I don't know, special day. I don't know what we call it here. We have with us today Bobby Senn, retired New York City firefighter. As my wires are all tangled up here. We also have Dr. Mark Lerner. There we go. Sorry, I'm all tangled up here. Okay. Bobby Senn and Mark Lerner are with us here this morning. We're here to talk about today. I guess right off the bat, before we even get into any history or any stories, but I guess I'll open it up to Dr. Mark Lerner, but I guess to both of you too. But I guess it's impossible to not focus on this day. I mean, do you get to a point where do you guys feel that reading the names or having something like this, do you feel that there's a point where it should? I hate this. I'm not trying to sound disrespectful, but where it should stop, because it's just when do we try to start moving on, or does talking? I know talking like this helps you, as hard as it is, but it does help. So you guys, you feel this is a good thing. Even 18, which even that alone, it's crazy to say 18 years later, but it still helps you to to focus on a day like this. I guess it's impossible to just move on and act like this is a normal day.
You know, Tony, in the field of psychology, there's a well-known concept called the anniversary effect.
Okay.
Where people tend to remember, have recollections, and for some, even painful flashbacks.
Sure.
Of events, particularly traumatic events that have overwhelmed them. So September 11th is a very powerful day of remembrance.
Absolutely.
It needs to be.
Right. Okay. And again, no disrespect meant there. I feel I'm happy. I thank you guys for being here. I'm thrilled that you're here, but at the same time, I know it's a hard thing. So a part of me feels bad that you're here, and we're here to once again tell your story and because it's such a hard thing to do. So
I mean, it's a legitimate question. How long, is it in the public? How long is it, our names read? How long does this happen? Do they do this for Oklahoma City? Do they do it for the mass shootings?
sure,
And that's, I think, more private, more intimate
sure,
settings for those. Although, Oklahoma City should be. There are still, to this day, wreath layings for Pearl Harbor.
right, right.
And the reality is, this was a life-changing event, not just for me. It's a life-changing event for the country.
Absolutely.
There was a vulnerability unveiled, as soon as everybody realized it wasn't an accident. That used to be, when you and I growing up, used to be, those bombings and terrorist acts only happened over there.
Right,
It
way
never-
over there.
Never happened here.
Right. This is
I
something
mean,
that's
I
on
would say the
TV.
only thing I really maybe paid attention to was if it was on the national news, but being Irish, paying attention to what went on, what would go on with Ireland and Northern Ireland.
Right, right.
When does it stop? Not in my lifetime, I don't think.
Right.
Again, as we evolve, and we go on and on, more and more people will pass away. A lot of the parents of people who I knew, they're hitting their twilight years.
Right.
And in 10 years, you're going to see a lot of families and parents, and maybe get away from it, or it'll just be maybe more intimate with family members, where they'll take sons and daughters and go, "Oh, we need to go remember your grandfather today."
Right, right.
Which is weird for me to say, because my peers were in their 30s. I think the average age of a victim of 9/11 was 31 years old.
Oh, is that right?
So it wasn't a bunch of old people that got killed. It was a lot of really young people.
Absolutely right.
Daycare kids and, all the schools that were around the area. And
Yeah. Being the average age being what it was, those children are now having children.
Yep.
Ones who were, in their teens. And you go to events and they walk in, and I remember seeing them as teenagers, and now they're walking in, and it's this many years later, and you go, wow, she just walked in with her 3-year-old daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing generations pass on. I do think there is considering the state of the country as it is and how vicious things are around the world,
Right.
I think today's part of it is a good day, because it kind of sets you back on your heels a little bit and go, wow. And you think about, I think about guys I work with,
Right.
but I also immediately start thinking about, Steve Kaleo,
Mm-hmm.
who I went to high school with.
Right.
For me, this goes back to people I went to grammar school with.
Right.
So it's not just one day with a certain group of people. And the carryover of it continues. We just had a 9/11 firefighter funeral yesterday because of remains that were identified.
Right.
So this doesn't go away. This isn't like a car accident or even a plane crash, where it was a one-time event, lasted one day. There was a cleanup period, which is usually pretty quick.
Sure.
The recovery period was 9 months.
Right.
It was, September 11th went on for 9 months, and everybody who was there has their own version of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And even people you run into, I think they need to grasp onto this day. I feel that. Like I had written on my Facebook page, I was really hesitant on writing this year.
Right.
And then when I get 20 messages, either from texts, running into people, phone calls, like, hey, when are you going to write something? I need to read about it, and I need to feel what happened.
Yeah.
That obligation kicks back in.
It's funny you talk about, the mindset, because you talk about how crazy the world is. We were talking about before we went on. I mentioned to Mark how I saw a post yesterday on Facebook where, and I think it was Kim Stanley, if I remember right. She wrote, "I wish everybody was as nice to each other now as they were on September 12th, 2001." To me, that summed it up. Because there was no division. It was You know, okay, we're helping each other. We're here for each other. It was all. You didn't have one political party pointing fingers at another. That crap was gone.
Life
you know?
stopped.
Right.
Everything stopped. That day, go get your kids out of school. Why?
Right.
I need to hug them. I need to hold them. I
Right.
want everybody home. You know, everybody circled the proverbial wagons. I loved to go into work that next day. You know, the next day I got home. I couldn't wait to get home.
Sure.
And I didn't stay long, but I literally needed to sit on the floor with my dog. I needed to hug my wife. I needed to see my neighbors.
Right.
There was that was needed. So.
Okay. I'll admit, this is. I don't know if I've ever been this nervous to do one of these shows. I'll be honest with you.
I feel it's so like sensitive, and we feel it so much, and like I just kind of feel like everything that is going to come out of like our mouths is going to sound stupid, because it's like all I want to say is like, yeah, like what you just said is it puts everything in perspective, but I'm like, of course you know that, you know, it's like there's nothing to really speak about because it's so hard.
And if there's anything we need to break, if we, you know, just say the word, because I know this is. You're great, man. You talk about it. You're on even just in normal life. You're open and you're welcoming and it's refreshing. But it's still hard. So by all means,
there's a couple of reasons for that. Is, you know, I have this obligation to speak for the dead, because almost everybody I went in there with was killed.
Right.
So I need to speak for them. There is that never forget thing that I have to live by that code. And it's not like I wake up in the morning and go, I got to do the never forget thing. It's part of me.
Sure.
You know, it is my, you know, as I wrote, it's my chapter and verse. You know, when I die, people are not going to be talking about, you know, playing baseball as a 12-year-old. The theme of when my life ends, whenever it is obvious. And that's my story.
Right.
And it's not a chosen story, but I carry it with, you know, as I would say, a double-edged sword. I carry it with a tremendous amount of pride, but with that, a tremendous amount of grief.
Sure.
You know, and there is not a day. You know, today's a day for everybody. I say this a lot. Today's a day is not for me. Today's a day for everybody else to remember, because I live it, and every firefighter and every police officer and anybody around that area who either saw a piece of it, was involved in a piece of it, you live a piece of that every day.
Right.
Whether you smell something, see something, you know, and he and I talk about that a lot with, you know, you said, and I'm really glad you said that was something we say might be stupid or might be silly. There's nothing you can say that is silly, because you have your own version of that day, and nobody has a right to take that away from you. And you and Mark and my neighbors and family, and people say, I didn't go through as much as you went through. And I immediately stop them. And I go, whoa. You live your own version of September 11th, whether it be with that day, or as we say regularly, you just got a phone call that your mother was diagnosed with cancer. You just got diagnosed with an illness. You just found out your son was in a terrible car accident and he's in the hospital. That's your September 11th.
Right.
And your reactions and your grief and your feeling and what you do with that is exactly the same. It's just what we say in the fire business, the mechanism of injury is different.
Right.
You know, and nobody has a right to take that pain away from you. To go
Yeah.
back 1 second about the
sure.
you know, the people forgetting thing, or the people, as Kim said, was unified as much as they were around the 12th, because everything stopped, and it's like everything else. Life had to kick back in. Life had to carry on and continue, because if we shut down, then those guys who flew airplanes into buildings, they won.
Right.
Yeah.
But people went back and they started playing baseball. And I remember that first Mets game, I caught a piece of that, you know, a little bit on TV, and that was really emotional.
Oh yeah, man.
You know, back in town, and to boot Mike's Piazza hitting the winning home run.
Right.
It was like, we needed that.
Yes.
I needed to sit down and watch Notre Dame football, even though like half of my brain was not watching it, and I would walk back and forth with the TV. I needed to connect to something normal. You know, and I hate using that word, but I needed to connect to something that felt right.
Yeah.
Because everything else didn't.
Or familiar.
Well, and I think especially in your case, even before 9/11, you needed to connect to something normal.
Yes, most of the time.
We're going to try our best to at least get a little lighthearted some points. Try to, of
that's
course,
good.
be respectful, but we're gonna try. And I will tease Bobby a little bit. He mentioned when he first got here, even though there were specific instructions to go in the back, he was knocking on the front door. That's a Hicksville education for you. He just couldn't, figure out which was the front, which was the back. So, all right. So, all right. So,
At the same time, I think like when you say that you feel obligated, like I feel horrible that you are obligated with this, but in another light, I'm like so thankful because you're so good at it. And you're such a great writer, and you're such a great speaker, and I'm sorry that you're stuck with it, but you really are great at it, and it makes everything better.
Well, one of his mantras is take whatever has happened to you with your life, or the adversity, and use it to propel you to greatness.
right.
And I was seeing a social worker through the fire department and trying to work through the grief end of it, and I had hit a wall. I hit a brick wall,
Yeah.
and in terms of where I was going, and I was introduced to Mark, and he was teaching me then the next phase of recovery
Right.
was, and he said it as simple as this: Bobby, what are you going to do with this? And I'm looking at him going, what am I going to do with what? Something happened to you. Do something good with it. And he pointed out to me, Mothers Against Drunk Driving didn't start at a mahjong game.
Right.
Like, hey, I got a
Let me
great
just
idea.
Put this through. Maybe they could just hold on just a
Oh,
second.
okay. There you go. They're
All
gone.
right.
Sorry to cut you off. We will take calls. We're going to keep track of all your comments, or as best we can. Some great ones are already coming in. We thank you. A lot of people are thanking you guys for coming in. A lot of people are talking about how Bobby is just fantastic. Lots of love. We will. So we're
Ellen
going to do our
O'Neill is
best.
watching. I know she's really important to you. Let's see. We've got Abby Rocher. She says that Bobby's completely genuine. She loves you.
Yeah, lots of great stuff coming in. So thank you, and we will be taking phone calls. We're sorry whoever that was calling. We're just getting started here.
Anthony Shirelli wants to know if we bought Bobby a bottle of bourbon yet.
All right, so let's
Not yet.
backtrack. Let's go back to the very beginning. All right, so we know you're retired, New York City firefighter. So give us whatever you want to tell us about that day. We'll start right from the beginning there. Where were you?
Home, woke up, I'm a big routine guy. Getting ready for work was got up 5:45, rolled over, grabbed my bag, kissed Christine, out the door I went. And one thing I say a lot was it's the taking things for granted aspect was not a thought in anyone, and I'll say anyone's day.
Sure.
That day to say, wow, I should probably go in and say goodbye again.
Right.
Or this is going to be the last time I see you. Or I'm
Right.
about to literally drive into Dante's Inferno.
Right.
So went to work, all typical days in a firehouse. And I will say that that's happened for everybody. Crisscross of shifts, night shift going off, day shift coming in. The timing of this caused, and I don't know the specific number, but of the 343 firefighters killed, over 200 of them were off duty. They were not
Oh, wow.
working.
Right.
Because the crisscross of who was working and who wasn't, everybody realized the magnitude and they just said, we're going, I'm going.
Right.
My firehouse was right over the other side of the Brooklyn Bridge in downtown Brooklyn. So the second this thing happened, we were called. So the first plane hit at 8:46. We were out the door at 8:51. We arrived at 9 o'clock, pulled up on Liberty Street about a block east of the Engine 10, Ladder 10 firehouse. Absolutely chaotic. I'll spare. I've written a lot about the
Right.
horror of people jumping out windows, but that was already going on.
Did you know what you were getting into? Did you have any idea the significance of this when you were going in? Did you any idea what
If
you were?
you've ever driven on the Brooklyn Bridge coming through Brooklyn, you actually come, you make a turn onto the entranceway, and then it makes a hard left and then goes over the bridge itself.
Right.
There was a lot of smoke in the sky, but until we turned actually on and facing the buildings themselves, brought out, you know, that changed everything. And I'll say for every firefighter that I've spoken to who survived said the exact same thing of you turned looking at the building and it was, you know, holy shit, we're going to die. Because the top 20 floors of that building are on fire.
Yeah.
And they're not
Right.
just like, it's not just oh yeah, there's fire out a window. It was,
Yeah,
you know,
huge.
there's terms we use in the fire business. It was pushing with authority. It was an understatement. That building was alive and pumping
Right.
with fire.
Right. And this is before you even knew it was an attack. So I would think that would take it to another level. This was just, holy shit, this is a bad fire that we
My
might
initial
die.
reaction was one of our guys came out of the locker room and I was across the hall, and he had a look on his face and he goes, an airplane just hit the World Trade Center. And his name was Kevin Riley. He was on his first shift back from his honeymoon,
Oh, wow.
and Kevin was killed. And his dad was a retired firefighter who has also since passed away. We're speaking about that. Spent a lot of time with him afterwards in the recovery effort, digging, looking for his son. You know, talk about humbling times. You know, a dad searching for his son. You know, and just a lot of quiet digging, eyes connecting, standing in 10,000 tons of shit and on fire and flaming over the next months, and you're just hugging each other. You know, because of I refer to my mortality. It's the mortality aspect of it, and the absolute sadness. So he said that, and I immediately thought like some clown flew a
Like a Cessna.
helicopter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
figured,
a little
it's
plane.
one
I
of the
thought it was like a
traffic
little
guys.
plane or something, you know.
I thought it was one of the traffic helicopters. Like, all right, somebody crashed inside. And it was like, all right, because of where we were, they're going to relocate us to Manhattan. And then it's happened a lot when something goes on there. They just push out, they push Brooklyn companies into Manhattan, Queens companies, Bronx. And it's like it's a puzzle, and they try to fit it back, so everybody's covered.
Right.
And I literally went, all right, because you don't carry cash in your wallet in your pocket when you're working, because A, you're probably going to lose it, or it's going to get really dirty and disgusting. And I went to my locker, and I was like, yeah, I should probably grab my wallet. We're going to be in Manhattan all day. As simple as that.
Yeah.
And then as I said that, I could hear the alarm. The teleprinter is what it was where our alarms come in. I could hear that printer start, buzzing. And I was like, all right, here we go, we're going. And then I tore it off and looked at it, and it said commercial plane into building, respond to World Trade Center #1. And I was like, commercial plane? And then it was like, wow. Then when I got outside, I went down, the doors of the firehouse opened up, looked outside, and the sky was just all black to the west. And I was like, holy shit, a plane crashed into this building. The terrorism thing didn't hit for me
Right.
until we pulled up. I get out, getting dressed, putting my stuff on, and there's a couple of hundred people standing in front of us, all watching this madness go on. And then everybody's head, like in unison, like it was practiced, spun to the left, and the second plane went literally staring straight up right over our heads and crashed into the building. And I actually had a deja vu. I said, wait a minute, that happened already.
Yeah.
And then it was like,
Right.
took 2 or 3 seconds. And then it was, holy shit, this is not an accident. This
Right.
is, But that part of it, and thinking about the wheres and whys and whos, immediately leaves you, and no drama to it, because it's like, get your shit, get in the building, because that's what we've done for 100
Right.
years.
Sure. It's what you
You
want.
just-
Yeah.
It's just what you do. You're automated. You're programmed. Like, okay, with high-rise building, we do this, we go here.
Right.
And it was literally the task of getting from where any unit parked their rig, or where they could park their rig, to get to the lobby of the building.
Yeah.
Where we parked was literally 2 city blocks away. So it wasn't like it was getting out of the car and walking in the back door here,
Right.
as opposed to the front door here. And that cycle started of evil and harshness of how bad it was. Because the I'm going to refer to it as the people jumping started pretty early on. And the scientific part of that is roast beef starts to cook at 310 degrees. So do we. Everything we're wearing, unless it's all cotton, is polyester, which is basically a solid form of petroleum. And it starts melting. If you look at any picture, and I know I posted a picture of all those people in the windows.
Right.
You zoom in on that, half of them have no shirts on, because they were taking their clothes off because it was starting to
Yeah.
melt to them.
Right.
And that heat will drive you there because people, hundreds of times, why were people jumping and not just waiting? That wasn't a decision that was made. Some,
Yeah.
and witnessed a couple of those where it was a decision because they really didn't have a lot of smoke pushing behind them. But the ones where it was really ugly where they were, you're going to go.
Yeah.
There's no, well, maybe I'll wait. That heat's going to push you, and you're going to go.
Right.
And that was helpless. Again, I'm reiterating what I've written. It's helpless, mortifying, and then the termination of that when they landed. Somebody hitting something at 125 miles an hour, you can do the math with that.
Right.
And what we're made of. It was life-changing. And the helpless life-changing part because of what the responsibility was of the fire department, the police department that day was, we weren't going to fix that, but I think the collective, if you asked anybody now, it was to hopefully keep it from getting worse. And as you know, it went from bad to worse, or as I wrote, it went from bad to really fucking bad really quick.
Right.
And a helplessness, and everybody with wide open eyes going, wow. And anybody that I spoke to in the aftermath said the same thing. Was like, wow, I knew I was going to die. It was just a matter of when.
And how?
And you just it was like, a firefighter was killed by somebody jumping out a window, landed on top of him. That was one of the first firefighters killed.
Right.
Brutal.
It's amazing to me, because again, it was a completely new, a different scenario. That type of war was new. That type of situation. You're going in there to battle fire, which this was a completely different scenario. But still, you're used to battling a fire. You have an idea, but it's a whole. To watch. You're not trained to watch out for bodies that it might hit you.
It was never part of the math.
Right. It just blows. I'll never try to imagine what it was like to be there in the middle of that. But such a crazy
thought. When that
thought.
first report came over the radio, when we were driving there, the Manhattan dispatcher said to the command post, Chief, be advised you have jumpers. And we've had jumpers. And again, where I work is a pretty unique. Was a unique area. We had the Brooklyn Bridge and the Manhattan Bridge.
Right.
And I've literally seen probably half a dozen people commit suicide off those bridges. And we would get called to that, and you'd stand there, and it's one or the other. They put a dozen police officers in harm's way, sending them up the bridge,
Right.
Up the anchorage of the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And they would sit there, and try to talk this guy down and reason with him. And it was one of two things. He was either coming down or he was coming down. It was just a matter of how.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, and we said we were going to talk about that, is bringing humor into dealing with bad things. You literally stand there after a while and just be like, I want to eat lunch. Either jump or get down.
Right.
Make a decision.
Because we were trained almost innocuously to not react. Don't connect with who it was.
Right.
It's not Mrs. Smith up there, or it's not Tony Walker up there having a really bad day and he's going to take his own life. It's some guy. It's a person.
Mm-hmm.
And as you start to connect to that, that will eat you alive.
Absolutely.
The reality is you're 100% wanting to help and helping as much as you can, but at the end of the day, with cases like that.
Right. So, but to go back to seeing people jump out of windows in 4-story buildings because there's fire there, that was normal. There was a normalcy to that. You kind of expected that.
Right.
People don't jump out of high-rise buildings from 1,000 feet in the air. They just don't. Mm-hmm. It's unheard of.
Right.
I don't think it's ever happened before. The MGM fire in Vegas, when they lost that hotel, there were people who jumped out of that, but that was 20 floors as opposed to 90 floors up.
Yeah.
And there's a brutality to that, and again, the helplessness of seeing that go on. And in dealing with that, later on, I will say the jumpers were probably one of the things that sat with me the most. That I couldn't wrap my head around and try to, as I say, that was one of the cans of things that were going on that I could find it and put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
Still to this day, you think about it, or when I even posted that photo, there's stories about that guy. He's called the Falling Man. And they actually have been able to. They zoomed in on that photo. They figured out who he was,
Jeez.
where he was, where he worked. And it's mortifying.
Yeah.
And I think about that of going like I know firefighters who were killed, and for most of them it was, what's that noise when the collapse started?
Right.
It was, what's that noise? It was over. I mean, it was instantaneous. So there's a thankfulness on my part for that it wasn't laying there in torture. It was
Right.
instant death for them.
Mm-hmm.
Here 1 minute, gone the next. Here 1 second, gone the next. But for a family to sit there and go, oh, yeah, that was my husband jumping out that window, I can't imagine living with that.
Right.
The magnitude of that. And that's, again, talking about each and everybody's story. And then people go, oh, I've had people looking, oh, I was at 9/11 too. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry you had to go through that. And there are some people, and then people start asking questions, and most of the time I go, depending on where we are, it's like, you probably don't, I don't really want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
If
Right.
somebody asks, like in this forum, you say, Bobby, talk about this. It serves two purposes. A, yeah, there's a catharsis to it of getting it out.
Okay.
And that's what healing is about, getting it out of you and not just letting it consume you. The other part of that is you want to share that so that people, when they're exhibiting the same symptoms that I was of not sleeping, not eating, not taking care of myself, giving up on life, started drawing the list out of my life going to shit. As I said before, your life is what it is, and you get bad news. And he taught me he taught me I was normal. He goes, no, you went through an unbelievable thing. Of course you wouldn't sleep. And I thought I was broken. And it took me finally surrendering, going, I need to go talk to somebody. And talking to Mark about that was him going, yeah, of course you're not sleeping. And the other gentleman I was seeing was Jerry Moriarty, who was a social worker, worked with the counseling unit, which the fire department thankfully put out there.
Nice.
So we could go talk to somebody. And if I didn't have Mark or Jerry, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, you can figure out where my life would be.
So this counseling department, that was put together after 9/11, or they already had that?
There was one before it, but definitely not as structured as it was,
Okay.
because suddenly they realized there was, a growing herd of broken firemen
Right.
who needed to go talk about something.
Sure.
And guys were, you went sick, or you were called in sick from work because, I broke something, I burned, I'm burned, I have a 24-hour virus, I have the flu, and you'd call in sick like anybody else would call in sick, whether it be a non-fire related injury, or you just got sick because, your kid got you sick. Guys started calling in sick because I can't be at work, and that has been unheard of.
Right.
And I'll tell you right now, there are still guys 18 years later who are still working who go, I really don't want to go to work today.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're going and they're having a really rough day and they haven't dealt with it. And I could rifle off a couple of names right now of friends of mine
Yeah.
who just have not confronted, the demon that is.
Yeah, because
can
sometimes it hits
consume.
much later.
Yeah.
So-
And there's a big denial thing.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Easiest
yeah.
way to deal with something is not to deal with it.
Right.
And that was my theme, was like, the busier I stayed, the more crap I embodied myself with, the more I didn't have to turn around and look in the mirror and go, wow, you're really fucked up right now. Not
That-
sleeping, not eating, 25 cups of coffee a day, crazy nightmares, waking
Yeah.
up soaking wet. I mean, right out of the movies. And you immediately go, holy shit, I'm broken.
So what? And I want to bring Mark into this. So how did that happen? You finally had a moment where you said, all right, I got to do something. This is ridiculous.
I got out of town. I went to Las Vegas with my wife. We had met a group of firefighters and their families from California. And we had decided, hey, why don't we meet in Vegas? And it was in May of '03,
Okay.
which there's a timeline to, is the digging stopped and recovery stopped in May of '02. So
Right.
I had to suddenly just go back to work. And literally that's what happened. It was like, you're not coming here anymore. Just go back to your regular life. And boy, you had a lot of free time on your hands then. And that clock, tick, 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 started getting loud in the background.
Okay.
And it was like a tsunami wave in the distance, just building and building and building, waiting for me to crash and burn somewhere, somehow. And what it took for me was getting out of my usual routine and getting out of town. I went, and we were coming home,
Yeah.
and I was in the process of trying to transfer her to a different firehouse, and I sat there going, Christine came out of the bathroom, and she looked at me, she goes, I love you, and I was like, I love you too. I stared out the window at the mountain range in the distance, and it was literally like somebody punched me in the face. It was like, I can't do this anymore.
Oh, wow.
I am so beyond broken, and I knew what I was going back to.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like sticking your hand in a hot boiling pot,
knowing you're gonna do
walking
bad.
away, and then
Right.
you go, holy shit, I burned my hand, and then I turn around to you and I go, shall I go back and put your hand back in that pot again? And you're gonna be
Right.
like, I can't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was my
Every
awakening,
day.
and it was a year. It was
Okay.
almost a year to the day that I just, after the recovery effort stopped, so it's a year and a half from this date, shot, and just waved the white flag.
Okay. And then, all right, so how'd you find Mark? Yeah.
I had been originally introduced to Jerry Moriarty through the fire department, and somebody said, go speak to him. He's a retired lieutenant. You can talk fire stuff with him. And,
Right.
you're not walking in, because if you're a therapist and I walk in and I start talking about fire terminology, you're going to be looking at me going like, what are you
Right.
talking about? She would literally have to get an education in that.
Right.
So I met Jerry, worked with him for quite a long time, and then I hit the wall, and then was introduced to Mark.
Oh, so Jerry knew you? Is that?
No, it was through a friend.
Oh, all right. That's what I was asking. How did you actually find Mark?
We had
Okay.
he had offered up, I'm speaking for him, he had offered up for any firefighter or anybody that wanted to go see anybody
Oh, okay.
early on. So I did meet him like pretty close to after the event, and we talked for a while, but I was doing the like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm
Right.
fine.
Sure.
I was just blabbing and talking, and then I realized like later on, it came into my mind, I was like, I need to go back and see him.
Okay.
And kept it in my wheelhouse. And I called him, and he was like, I remember exactly who you are.
Sure. All right. So we'll bring. Thank you for hanging tight with us, but I'm sure you expect
Putting
that
up
anyway.
with my diarrhea of the mouth.
So and that's great, by the way. You just put it out there to all the firemen. Hey, here, I'm a doctor. I try to help you guys. If you need anything, here I am. Right off the bat, that's just a super move right there. So, did you know? Was it just a 9/11 thing, or do you have a fireman's connection? Because, like Bobby said, there's all sorts of terminology and lingo that we wouldn't understand. So, in meeting with Bobby or any fireman before him, did you have to do any training to learn their life, or did you have a connection to it? Like what, or was it just 9/11 that kind of sent you out there? I'm going to do something nice for these guys and offer my services.
Well, I had a unique experience. I had the opportunity to work with the Nassau County Police Department and ride-alongs for over a year
Oh, okay.
with police officers and ambulances, with supervisors, and I really wanted to pinpoint what is it that we could say and do in the earliest phases of traumatic exposure. Maybe something better than everything is going to be all right in the earliest phase, or
Right.
it could have been a lot worse.
Right.
So what I did was, having this desire to reach people early on, I basically got the word out there that at the end of the evening, about 9:30, 10 o'clock, come into my office and I'd have some small groups. Now, my recollection was a little different, Bobby. I don't remember you blabbing. I remember just the opposite. I remember Bobby wearing his hat. He had his head down, and he was probably the only person in the room who wasn't speaking at all. And
Until
it
they
was-
asked me to. Until they're like, you should tell him what happened to you.
I don't
My friend
recall
Ray
that.
said that. He goes, you should tell him what happened to you, which was, in essence, him trying to get the spotlight off of himself and dealing with what he's going through, with regard to his experience that day. It was, hey, tell him what happened to you. And I just, again, at that point, it was like I said, a bag. You just talk about the bag. You unzip the bag and you can pull something out and then zip the bag back up. I unzipped the bag and everything just spilled.
Yep, I hear you.
And it was uncontrollable.
Yep.
See, my recollection was a little different. I don't recall Bobby speaking.
Well, maybe we should
But I
talk
re-
about that.
Maybe we should.
Bobby Senn, Mark Lerner, Mark Lerner, Bobby Senn. Yeah.
This afternoon.
Please,
Let's see if we can make some time.
please admonish the witness.
But, I remember Bobby not talking, and a couple of months later, do you remember me getting that phone call? I was the guy that didn't say anything. Can I come in and see you? I'm ready.
Right.
And it was at that point that Bobby really began to open up and talk about the pain of what he had been through. What I find fascinating, we talk about it to this very day, we've become dear friends, is every time I hear Bobby speak and talk about his story, I learn something else. Every single time, including this morning.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much to this. in terms of the impact on somebody's life and on people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's why I felt the need to even. I mean, I was grateful that you suggested doing this because I remember even last year we just did our normal thing here, and I felt weird about it. You know,
I mean, we didn't do like our normal thing. We addressed it, but
we addressed it, but we still did.
Yeah, it's such a difficult thing.
And you want to.
Who wants to go there? I mean, who wants to walk in like
right,
you lose
but you
somebody in
feel
your
weird
family.
not going there at the same time, though. It's a weird thing.
But I feel like you want to go there because it feels, I don't know, it just feels right to go there.
And that was the reason behind, I said to Mark, I go, hey, listen, I'm going to reach out to Tony, and maybe we can share the morning with everybody else.
Sure.
Because it'd be really easy for me to stay home.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
And my
Sure.
morning this morning was very not typical for September 11th for me. Because I'm usually up at 6, not even
Yeah.
6, 5 up. I'm watching the sun come up, sitting on my front porch, drinking coffee. I had no desire to get out of bed this morning. And I stayed in bed till my nephews showed up,
Yeah.
and they walked out. I was feeling crappy. I could feel it building. Those 2 kids walked through the door, and I picked them both up, and I was gone. Completely shot.
Yeah.
I love the posts about you and them. That it's just so heartwarming.
There was a moment of when I was in my worst times. Again, Gavin's 8, so it's not, and it's 18 years ago. So 10 years ago, I was still really in the throes of dealing with it and finding my way. I had actually had a couple of other nephews born, but I was so fogged over and beat up. It was like, oh yeah, we had a nephew born. I had hit a plateau in recovery and starting to feeling life again. We were standing. I'm actually getting emotional talking about it.
It's rough.
We were standing in the hospital, and they rolled him out, all swaddled up on this cart. And I'm looking through a window. It's almost like a porthole. And they roll him out in front of us. And I say it's like getting punched in the face. And I went, holy shit, you could have missed this. You should be dead. You shouldn't be seeing any of this. And I could not wait to hold that kid.
Yeah.
And then later on, my wife's company had moved. And then she said, and we don't have kids. And Christine, I know, said, I think I want to watch Gavin. And his mom was going back to work. Mm-hmm. And this little alien came into my house in March, 8 years ago. And she walks in, and Christine's got a giant smile on her face. And I go, holy shit, we have a baby in the house.
Yeah.
I'm used to dogs and parrots and cats,
Right.
and
Which you treat better than kids than most people do. So.
and I'm sitting there holding him, and I'm like, oh my god, and I was overwhelmed by that. I mean,
Yeah.
I always say it. I envy parents, who embrace their kids that way, and it's a tough job.
And you do. And let me tell you something about Bobby. Because I'm new to understanding who Bobby is. Tony's known him for a really long time, but every second I love him more. And I don't know, how long ago was it we got notices in Hicksville about a dog that got out, some Saint Bernard or some
yeah.
What was that thing?
Kristen, we were home. It was a weekend.
What was that freaking
And
thing?
I was actually just getting over pneumonia again, and we had to go up into Huntington to pick something up.
Uh-huh.
And Christine had seen it on Facebook.
Yeah, we all did. We were all like, oh, there's this
missing St. Bernard.
Yes, yeah, so it was a St. Bernard.
Yeah.
We go up into Huntington, and on the way back, we get onto the expressway, and I see the 135, and I remember it said he was missing off the 135.
Yeah.
And I said to Chris, I go, screw it, let's just shoot down to 135. I'll ride the shoulder. You look out the window, and maybe we'll
I
see
bet
a
you will
dog.
find this dog. And guess what?
And
guess what these
two exits
two
in,
knuckleheads found?
Christine goes, holy shit, there it is. And there is this gigantic St. Bernard sitting up in the woods just with
Just
his tongue out.
waiting for Bobby
waiting
and
for
Christina to come by and open up the door and say, get in the car.
So the saying of no good deed goes unpunished then follows suit,
Yeah.
because I jump out of the car. For some reason, I had a dog leash in the back of my car. I used to
Because you
keep.
have a dog.
Yeah, but I mean, whatever, it was there, and
It has something to do with Bobby Saturday nights,
grabbed
but we're
it,
not getting
yeah.
into that.
I take myself for a walk. So I jump out in the woods, and now I'm trying to track her. So she ducks into this drainage tube,
Yeah,
and
'cause
she's in there.
starving, afraid,
and-
she doesn't know.
Scared to death.
Yeah.
And I go and I look in the tube, and this feeling of euphoria overcomes me, and I go, holy shit, I got you.
Yeah.
And she comes out, and I like right out of TV, I'm doing the lasso thing, trying to get it around her, and
Right.
she's pulling her head back. And I'm like, no.
She's
Supposed
like,
to get this on the first shot.
No, not happening. And I finally get it around, and I pull her out. I go, come on, sweet girl, come out. Well, she comes out, and she's hesitant. And I have her, and I actually start crying, and I go, we got you. You're going home.
Yeah.
Because she's on the 135, and one of the chance she gets
She's going to get
squashed.
hit
Right.
an hour and a half from then.
So
you
we
know?
walk about 20 yards, and then there's like this split in the woods to either go back up to the 135 or into the neighborhood. And I go, maybe I should take her into the neighborhood and not near cars doing
cars.
60 miles an hour in case she bolts and drags me into traffic because she'll survive and I'll get hit by a car. So I go to make the left, and I'm deciding, and I turn my head to look to talk to Christine up on by the guardrail, and I'm like, pull the car off the exit and go around. And she looks up at me and goes, fuck you. Bang! And bites me.
Right.
And like goes right, and I had gloves on, and I was like, wow, you fucker, you bit me.
Get back in the tube.
And I looked down, and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, all of a sudden, like through my glove, blood starts like filling the glove. And I go, wow. I immediately lose feeling in 3 of my fingers, and I go, wow, this is not good. So now I have my hand under my armpit. I'm walking this dog, and now I'm like, you motherfucker. I'm cursing at her, going like, yeah, really, thank you for saving me.
Right.
You know, so I go up there. One of the owner shows up. His name is Bob. He's fried because he's been looking for this dog for a week, I think, at this point.
Right.
And it was kind of a puppy, wasn't it? Like not like
She
a
was
1 year old.
She's a year old.
Or
Her name is
something.
Echo.
Yeah.
Her name is Echo. And I'm walking with her. We come out, and I'm standing there, and he comes up and he goes, "Oh, you have my dog?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like, I'm standing there. I take my hand out. Now there's blood all over my hand. And he just goes, "Can I have her?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I have to go to the hospital."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes,
You can also have my doctor
and
bill.
again, he's so overwhelmed with what he's going through. He just goes, "Good luck." Whoa. And I drive away.
That was it.
Well, listen, he just got his dog back. He's been tracking this dog in the woods, you know.
Yeah.
And listen, dog rescue people are wackos. Like people come out of the woodwork. And another piece is like, I'm walking up with this dog to go, and this woman's like, "Give me the dog, give me the dog." And I'm like, "What do you want, credit for this?"
Yeah, right.
You know, I'm like,
who are you?
I'm like,
I don't know
I'm
who
like,
you are.
"Who are you? Do you?" And she's like, "No, I'm from the ABC Kooky Dog Rescue." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm Bobby, and I just pulled over and saw the dog." So I was like, "Do you have a towel?" And she's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "She bit me."
Oh, yeah, they have no regard for humans.
Then she backs away, and she's like, "Oh, she bit you?" I was like, "Oh, now she's a dangerous dog."
Now
But
you're
she
a little
wasn't.
busy.
She was just scared. So that ended. It's funny. I'm in the hospital. You know, they come in, and the nurses go, "Wow, your dog bit you?" And I go, "No." I tell a story, and she goes, "You'll never do that again."
You will.
And she said, and I go, "This is no good deed goes unpunished."
Right.
Yeah.
What has come out of something really terrible, such as somebody losing their dog, me getting bit, is Christine and I are now great friends with Echo's mom, and her name is Nancy. And Nancy and I talk online all the time. She says she sent me a keychain in the mail that says,
Cujo.
no, it was like, "I'm an asshole, but you love me." Like, she's got a great sense of humor. The bad part is, like, we've tried to plan getting together and go see Echo,
Right.
but it just hasn't happened. And it's going to be 2 years. It'll be 2 years in March.
Wow.
And we still haven't re-seen them. And I said, well, I'd be a little hesitant to visit Echo.
Right.
She might smell blood in the water. You know, and be like, "Oh, I think I'll bite you." But that actually,
Yeah.
I tell Nancy, she apologizes all the time, and I go, "Listen,
Yeah.
that's the best dog bite of my life."
Yeah. Right.
Because that puppy's home.
Right. And you would have done it
Yeah.
100 times over. So.
So, but just so everybody knows, if you do walk the woods on the side of the 135, there's a shitload of sticker bushes and a lot of poison ivy.
In case anybody's going for a
So you had,
romantic
like,
walk.
stitches, nerve damage, and you
yeah,
itched
it's
for
hysterical.
3 weeks.
And I tell my friends are fine about it, and they go, "Only you.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh,
Only
yeah.
you would this happen to."
Yeah, it was weird. When I read that, I was like, "Oh, what a cool story!" But at the same time, I'm not surprised. It's Bobby Senn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there was.
Oh,
All right, so
135? Oh, you know what we should do? When you hear it.
yeah, you want to take? All right, let's take this one.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody. There's been a lot of calls coming in. Our apologies for not being able to get to all of them, but we got you. Who's this? You're on live on the Knock 'em Dead Comedy Radio Show. Who's this?
Yeah, this is Bob from California. I used to travel with Bobby throughout the West Coast when he used to do his programs.
Hi, Bobby. How you doing?
Good.
You're on the air. Just
yeah,
so you
you're
know.
on the air with Bobby. He's here.
Bob, Mark, it's Bob and Mary from California.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good to hear your voice.
Good, we're watching.
Good. Love you guys. That's the family we went to Las Vegas.
Oh,
with.
in Vegas. Okay. Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and say that I traveled with Bob for about 8 years while he was out here on the West Coast doing his programs, and he used to speak to fire departments and different companies and have public gatherings, and just the turn that he made in people's lives is incredible. And then to join up with Mark, I've had the pleasure of witnessing both Bob and Mark's program and just what they do for people and get people thinking about their lives. It's just been tremendous.
And did it help you guys? Like, I know we're going to get to it, the program that you guys have going on. But what did it do for you, Bobby? Did it help you in any way, or deal with some kind of loss in your life?
Well, I'm a retired firefighter myself. I had 40 years, and I did 29 years as a paramedic.
Trees don't live that long.
And as I tell people, my hard drive's full. And I think, a lot of PTSD, people don't really realize that they have it. But, all it takes, like Bobby said, is a sound or a smell, and that file cabinet drawer opens, and the files just start flying out. And just being around him and hearing, some of the things that he's brought from his therapy with Mark and with Jerry, it sinks in, and you watch people's reactions, and then you start thinking about some of your own, mortality. And it's helped me a lot.
That's fantastic. And you guys have kept in touch, I guess, or?
He's one of my closest friends.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, we're family.
Right. Okay.
Brother from another mother.
Very cool. That's great. We appreciate you watching and the phone call. That means a lot. Thank you, Bobby.
I'll call you later.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. And the comments are coming in like crazy. I saw the Hastings sisters, Dawn and Christine, and they unfortunately lost. I remember when they lost their father. He was a fireman. Gina Pacifico Brown. The list is just endless. George Eldey, Jim Savali, Jim Raya, Susan Rodriguez, Nancy McGee is watching. I mean, the comments are just coming in like crazy. We thank you guys.
Jennifer Marone said Bobby Senn is one of the best human beings I know. I love you.
Jay Munn, Teresa, Alyssa, Linda DeBello Fiorello. And they're all saying they love you. Tom Kearney.
You asked why. Like, why do this today? Why do this when, again, could be downtown Manhattan, could be anywhere. Cemeteries, there's 100 places to go today, to remember, including sitting on the front porch. That's why, because every single person that is either listening or going to listen later has their own piece of this, of losing a friend or losing a neighbor or their connection to me or other firefighters or police officers. Whatever it is, that they relate, again, maybe they're, as Bob just said, their own vulnerability. And that was the point of coming in today was, we'll be here today because I know that you're hurting too. It's not about me, And I've had people accuse me that, you're grandstanding, you do this, that, and I go, yeah, you want to stop by and I'll show you all the charity donations from everything I've done of where that money has gone, and I'm not even going to get into that thing, but, there's people, and most of the people that will criticize are broken themselves. And it's easy to just point the finger or do something that way, and I don't pay that any mind. My focus today is, and with anything that Mark and I have done, is what can we do so that other people don't crash and burn like I did?
Right.
Absolutely. And that's why I think what we bring to the table is, here's 30 years of clinical experience, and I have 30 years of getting my ass handed to me in the fire business. Either being a volunteer firefighter growing up in the environment, and again, I write about it, the environment that I grew up in, how it has affected my life, and then, being a paid firefighter in, the busiest city in the world, as to what it's done. And the connection to Mark is, he'll validate because going like, no, I'm a doctor. This is real. This happens. And he said it to me. Bobby, of course you're not sleeping. How could you sleep?
Right.
If you were sleeping, I'd be worried about you.
Sure.
That you were just paying it no mind. And And to the other side of that is people will connect with me because they'll be like, that's a guy who went through something. And I've had other cops and firemen come up to me and go, I'll listen to you because you've gone through it.
Sure. Absolutely.
And you're not just going to be some guy up there,
Right.
as we say, death by PowerPoint going, there's 7 symptoms
Right.
to post-traumatic stress. And
Yeah, thank God that's not what you're doing. Yeah.
make sure you get your pneumonia shot.
Right.
And it's
All right, so I want to ask about the program, but just one question before I do that. Because Bobby was talking about, this was not your normal call. They look up and they see this, like, holy shit, yeah, this is the day we're going to die. This is not your normal fire. Was it the same for you? Like, holy shit, I've never had a patient that had something this level of trauma. Did you have to make any adjustments in how you deal with patients? Was there any concern for you, or was this just, no, this is post-traumatic syndrome, I got this?
Well, one of the things that I've learned, Tony, is that no matter what the precipitating event is, no matter what the traumatic event is, we all experience the same fundamental human reactions.
Okay.
And I saw an opportunity with this, and this kind of goes into the program.
Okay, good.
I was very moved with the God Squad, as people can relate to
Oh,
in the
sure.
New York area, with
okay.
the late Monsignor Hartman
Right.
and Rabbi Gelman. And I saw two people coming from different places addressing something in such a meaningful way. And I thought, what if a man who's walked the path of being a victim to a survivor and now truly a thriver, who's used that pain and done something so meaningful with it,
Sure.
what if we joined together and did a program? And that's the program that we're talking about, where
Right.
we've traveled from pharmaceutical companies to emergency responders to survivors of the October 1st shooting in Las Vegas,
Right.
where we've had the opportunity to bring different perspectives, the perspective of the person who's studied this, but also the man who's lived it.
Right.
And I find that that's very powerful, and we're getting some good feedback.
So, right, and the name of the program is?
It's Lerner and Senn, Emotional Wellness.
Right. And you travel all over the country.
Yes.
Like you said, dealing with any traumatic situation, and you'll speak to groups. You do one-on-ones, or is it just groups, or anybody? Like, how does it?
It really is anybody, but it's been
Okay.
to groups of people. We've spoken to small groups, or to very large groups of people, to narcotics officers. It's very varied. We find that that's part of the what really juices us.
Okay.
That it doesn't have to be one type of audience. Speaking to an audience in a high school after they experienced the suicide of a student was so moving
Sure, right.
to both of us. And as many people as we can reach.
Okay.
I will say, and it's a frustration for both of us, is
Sure.
anytime something happens, there's the reactive approach and the proactive approach. Anytime that we offer the proactive thing for whatever it is, like, suicide prevention, dealing with, seeing things, whatever the subject matter might be, is of coping with things that you see at work or you go through, or the loss of somebody.
Right.
I think we even tried approaching a fertility clinic about people who are struggling having a child. And it was being proactive. And some of them, almost all of them, don't want to be, they're not proactive about their emotional health. If you were offering flu shots and, a yoga session at lunch, that room's packed. You come in and you start talking about, as we say, the F word,
Right.
feelings, they don't want to go there.
Right.
They don't want to go there. And they slough us off. And then, for some people, it's too late, because then an incident or something really terrible happens.
Right.
And then they're all looking for, oh my God, I need the magic pill that's going to make me feel better. And we go in
Unfortunately, it does usually take something like that for
absolutely.
them. Yeah.
And even that, we've reached out to the, I can tell you, over a dozen times I reached out personally to the Pulse nightclub groups after that shooting.
Right.
Not even a response.
Florida, you talking about?
Oh yeah, not even a response. And we're not saying we want anything to do it. It was like, get us there. We'll do this for you. You can do it as a fundraiser to build what you're trying to do about
Right.
whatever the subject is,
Sure.
whatever awareness it is.
Mm-hmm.
And people won't do it. It's few and far between. And he'll call me up and go, I just got a phone call out of the blue from, this group.
Right.
When we went to Vegas, I have a friend I've made through doing other programs that I did about just 9/11 and what it did to the fire department, the police department. I had a police officer from Vegas reach out to me and say, listen, we have a Narcotics Officers Association meeting. We want you to come in and talk to our guys because they go through some crazy stuff. And it was fantastic. And it was like they were participating and giving us feedback. And when we were done, we were sitting out by the bar having a drink, and like 2 hardcore narcs walked up, guys who you'd think were homeless by the way they're supposed to be looking.
Right.
They sat down and talked to us for 2 hours?
Yeah.
And we're like, you hit home on things. And that's the goal for this, but it's our hardest, our biggest obstacle is getting people who are willing to go,
Right.
yeah, bring this in.
Sure.
But it was the same thing with you two when you first met. You needed time. You needed to like stick it in the back of your head and let it scratch at you for a while, and then you asked for help. So like everyone is doing exactly what you kind of did. It takes a while. Like if it's something that you're not, it's new to them. Like the people getting shot in bars. It's new. It's a crisis. They're not used to it. They don't know how.
I'd like to interject. Nowadays we can't walk into a pharmacy without seeing that word wellness on the wall.
Right.
Preventing illness, keeping people healthy, improving the quality of life. But there's an important component of wellness that is so overlooked that will ultimately disable more people than all the physical problems combined. And that's emotional wellness.
Sure.
And awareness, understanding, and acceptance of our feelings and our ability to manage through challenges and change. And that's what Bobby and I are really trying to do. We're trying to look beyond wellness and bring this into the feeling place.
Well, right, and that's what you're involved in, National Center Emotional Wellness.org. I think that's, I guess, what connected you two, right? Because that's what you had already, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's an entity that I had established, but this was an opportunity to, under the name of the National Center for Emotional Wellness.org, why don't we make it about this program? And let's bring it to schools. Let's bring it to businesses. Let's just not bring it to when something bad happens, but as Bobby said, we try to be proactive if we can.
Right.
And one of our most common conversations we have, and he lobs it right out there, is he goes, people are so hesitant to address emotional needs and emotional wellness and taking care of themselves. Right. He said, we can't even give this away.
Yeah, oh wow, yeah.
We're not walking in there going, hey, pay us $1 million to come in and change your life.
Right.
We're trying to give it away. And you literally get the Heisman Trophy pose, like, get away from me.
Right, yeah.
If we were calling them and saying, hey, listen, we're going to give everybody in your place flu shots for free, there'd be a line out the door. Every light on that phone would be ringing up.
You want to? Speaking of which, I don't know. Did we lose you? Are you there? Hello. No, they're gone. All right. Our apologies. The phone has been ringing a lot. No, don't unplug it. We'll take them when we can. We appreciate you guys being patient. We're sorry we're not getting to all the calls. There's a lot to say here. I see Eric Fellon is watching. Eric Fellon is a friend of ours. He was there. He was working nearby, and there's we've actually seen pictures of him, covered in dust and running from the scene. Eric, I don't know if that was you trying to call. There was discussions that you might call in during this today to talk, but there we go. All right. You're on the Knock 'em Dead Comedy Radio Show. Who's this? Hello? Hello? All right. We answered it in 2 rings, and they're gone. Okay. Eric is here. Hi.
We have Maria Sanchez said that both of you were at Hicksville High School a while back.
That must have been weird going home. Did that have any effect on you doing the presentation?
Kind of weird, kind of scary that some of the crap I wrote on the wall in the back of the theater was still on the wall.
We did a murder mystery at the junior high last year, and I'm like, I walked into the cafeteria, and I'm like, me and Nancy Campbell used to sit right here. It was like so weird.
Yeah. Everything looks a little smaller. Walking to an elementary school, it's really small.
Yes.
You get that Uncle Buck thing with the toilet, the urinal on the floor, and you're like, how did I do that?
Yeah. Well, not to me. I didn't really grow up past 12.
The high school was actually, unfortunately, a reactive event.
I bet.
You want to? Yeah, go ahead.
You're live on the Knock 'em Dead Comedy Radio Show. Who's this? Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
You're on the air.
That's awesome.
Who's this?
This is Terry from Island Park.
Hi, Terry from Island Park.
Terry Reichel.
Yeah, Terry Reichel. Hi, Bobby.
How are you?
I'm good.
How's that big puppy doing?
Oh, he's awesome.
Awesome.
He's awesome.
I don't want to get bit by
Oh
him.
my.
Oh, is this the mommy?
No.
Oh, okay.
He's a friend from Island Park. One of my warriors, as I call her.
Well, I learned from the best. First of all, Mark, I want to thank you for helping Bobby. Bobby was there for so many people, so many times, and that's amazing. But he's truly one of my heroes personally. Anyone that meets Bobby has a friend for life. He showed up in Island Park after Hurricane Sandy with members of the Hicksville Fire Department. They came early in the morning. They left late at night. They came in the rain, the snow. Bobby even postponed his knee surgery to help us. And he was the last person in Island Park. Day in and day out, he was there, and he was the last one there. And he helped me. His experience and his faith helped me to deal with my personal situation, which helped me help other people with their situations, coping and dealing with just everyday difficulties. It wasn't 9/11. It wasn't by any means near 9/11. It wasn't a mass school shooting. It was a flood. A lot of people lost their homes, not their lives, thank God. But in a nutshell, he's just an angel in my eyes. He's a hero in Island Park. I remember when you showed up at the truck dedication in Island Park a few years later, everything that we had gone through together, just, talk about opening that zipper on that bag. Oh my God, it all just came out. And we still keep in touch, and I'm so grateful for that. And I just want to let you know that we'll be having ice cream for dinner tonight.
Outstanding.
And give Declan a big kiss.
He got one this morning.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure all of them did.
And pancakes.
And remember that Terry loves you too.
I love you. Thanks.
And you're doing a great job. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud to call you my friend.
Terry, I'm going to brag about her a little. Terry lost, everybody in Island Park lost their home.
Yeah, sure.
It was under 8-9 feet of water.
Right, yeah.
And on top of Terry trying to rebuild her own home, she became kind of like the go-to, what are we going to do person in terms of trying to get funding, trying to get FEMA involved. And boy, there was some crazy mad days going on down there. And it was almost perfect timing because she kept a very stoic / cast iron face. She'd get out of the car, and tough to read, being a really good mom for her kids and being a good mom for that town. And I would walk up being frazzled because trying to get basics in place for those people. And she'd walk up and we'd talk for about 10 minutes and I'd get recharged. Right. Like my batteries would recharge and I'd be like, okay, let's go. We'll get this done.
That's the way I felt too. That's exactly the way I felt.
Awesome.
Wow. And I remember one day asking you if you were married. I mean, of course I'm married, and I was joking around the whole time. And
depending
Christine
on the day,
there.
she'll be willing to hand me right over.
You're live on the internet. Be careful.
No, I think Christine's amazing, and she came to help too. And I met her, and I was like, oh my God, these two are they're just meant for each other. And I thank God every day for you guys. I really do, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm glad that you and Mark are doing everything that you're doing. I was there in White Plains. I saw you there. White Plains it was, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And such an amazing experience. And I share your information with everybody I know, and I just hope that everybody takes advantage of it when they need it, because you guys are amazing human beings.
Paying
and I
forward.
wish you peace on this day, Bobby. I really do.
Thanks, Terry. Love you.
I love you.
Wow. All right, we appreciate the call. That was really nice. And
Have a great
I hope
day.
you're doing well. Doing well. I know it's several years later, but hope you're doing all right down there.
Yeah, we're doing good. We're
Excellent.
doing good.
Great. Well, thanks for the call.
Have a great day, guys.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, I got nothing after that. See ya.
Terry's awesome. Yeah, I call it I have my group of warriors, do things. Lisa Lancer Russell,
Sure.
warrior. This is when the emotions will come up. I start talking about other people.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
run
she's
into
had
people-
quite a ride herself. Yeah.
And a fighter. I tell you, I wouldn't want to get in a fight with her. Because no matter how many times you knock that girl down, she's standing back up.
Right. Right.
Terry, again, imagine losing everything.
Right.
And the stories came out of there of people tying themselves off to parts of their house. I mean, you watch what's going on what happened in the Bahamas.
Right.
And you go, some people literally say, "Oh God, thank God that never happened here." No, it did. And
Right.
then some.
Right.
And that town literally, took a shot to the gut, and unity.
How are you physically? Because I mean, God, it's a shame how many people have gotten sick since then. You
I would
get
say
checked
that-
out and stuff.
That actually, I just had a full body scan done, more radiation, but it was a kind of like a, damned if I do, damned if I don't, and
Yeah.
it was, the cancers are running rampant through the rescue community.
Yeah.
The number of firefighters and police officers those names going on those walls, respectively.
We just lost a Hicksville guy 2 months ago.
We did.
Bill Leahy.
Yes.
2 months ago, I
Billy
think it was?
Leahy. That's
Yeah.
correct. Port Authority police officer.
Right.
Cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if anything hovers with me now the most, it's the fear of that. Like it's one of my things. I kind of not balk, but I take little jabs at people when they're like, "Oh, my back, my arm, my arm."
Mm-hmm.
I don't write about being sick ever. I don't publish it, and they're like, I'm sick more than I'm healthy in terms of like being ill. I am. I've had pneumonia 5 times in the last year, and it's kept me down. I was sick from the middle of June till the middle of August. And it's, the medications are debilitating.
Yeah.
And again, I'm sitting here speaking for this. I'm speaking for thousands of guys who go through the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Some of whom I'll leave them nameless because it's up to them if they want to
Right.
speak about that. But some of them I see guys we went to high school with and I see regularly, and we just, you give each other the nod. We literally see each other in the pulmonologist's office, hug, how you doing? Same shit, It's being as proactive as possible in terms of keeping up with doctor appointments, and the fire department and the World Trade Center medical program is actually really good.
Right.
And they take really good care of us. My big thing is as long as I don't walk in there and they, and preaching to the choir here, I don't want to walk in, the big fear is to walk in there and the first word they say to you starts with the letter C. And,
Cookie.
Yeah. Your life changes. Again, I'm preaching to the choir right now. It inverts. And I just watch guys who were doing okay to, I'm standing at their graveside 6 months later,
Yeah.
3 months later, 9 months later.
Yeah.
Ray Pfeiffer was from Hicksville. He's the spokesperson, one of the spokespersons
Yeah. Sure
for
was.
getting, permanent treatment and permanent coverage for everybody, be it uniform or civilian. I watched that guy going from, I'd see him in, going into work the same days. I'd see him at 7-Eleven at 5:30 in the morning grabbing coffee, and we'd be bullshitting about nonsense fires and funny stuff and what's going on around town.
Yeah.
9/11 happens, and then it would be a nod in 7-Eleven, hug out in the parking lot, I'll see you later. Seeing him down at the pile while we're, digging, to suddenly he gets that bad diagnosis, and then watching him, deteriorate, was helpless.
Right.
Really helpless. I have no complaints. I get my medication. I pick up the phone. They mail it to me. I need a doctor appointment. They give it to me. And relatively speaking, considering my proximity to and my exposure to being down there, of being in both collapses and taking all that stuff in, to spending as much time as I did down there in the recovery effort, I am very fortunate.
Sure.
Because statistically I fall into a category of people. And ironically, knock on wood or knock on whatever you want to knock on, all the guys that I worked with who survived from my firehouse, we're all relatively healthy. I'll say, speaking,
Okay.
and it's very strange.
Sure.
You know,
The mindset has a lot to do with, comes into play with that too, correct? You know, as far as feeling good or when it comes to
You mean just worrying about it all the time that it's going to
yeah,
happen? or-
that comes into play to a certain degree as well. Yes.
Absolutely, it's that mind-body connection in
Right,
terms of
right.
Okay.
our feelings connected to how our body is doing.
George Eldey has a question for Dr. Lerner. Can you speak about the epidemic of police officers and armed service suicides and what is being done to prevent?
Well, suicide has become an epidemic in general. Most people do not know that the leading cause of injury, death of Americans, surpassing automobile accidents, the leading cause of injury, death of Americans is suicide.
Yeah, so we're talking outside of disease.
Yes,
Right.
And the numbers would be even higher because they spare the families of people who've overdosed by saying it's an overdose when many of them were suicides.
Sure.
So it is an epidemic proportion. Suicide, unfortunately, has a copycat effect. That's why we typically don't see suicides, particularly among high school students, posted in the news.
Okay.
It's well known that when people hear about this, other people who are not doing well could see it as a potential option and act. And I think that that's a big part of what the problem is, to answer the callers directly with this, is with our first responders, particularly members of the NYPD. They're seeing that this is happening with their brothers and sisters, and they could do this too if things are that bad. And
Right.
being a police officer and having that weapon is that immediate action that they could take to end their life. It's not something that's survivable
Right.
in almost all cases.
and there's a big difference with police officers versus firefighters, because I walk into the firehouse and I go, I'm really not feeling so hot, whatever is causing it. Nothing really changes. All right, we can reach out to the counseling unit, get you in with somebody. I still go to work the next day.
Right.
I still get to go home. Police officers are held to a different standard regarding that, where you get the fear of, and again, it's a term I guess I learned as a kid, it's like being put on the rubber gun squad. We're going to take your guns away.
Right.
You immediately get labeled as, or a hazard or a danger to yourself and to others, and you're off the street. Talk about stigma being implanted or, tattooed on their forehead.
Right.
They can't reach out without a terrible, terrible affect that comes with it. Or like at what cost?
Right.
Like, I could go in and say that I'm really struggling with these, 5 dead children we found in a murder-suicide, make up the story you want, but I can't say anything. I'm not allowed.
Right. That goes back to what we were talking about before when these narcotic officers sat with you at the bar. Yeah, there is a stigma about them. We're okay. We're officers. We don't. And again, I'm speaking out of turn, not being one, but I think that's what they go through. We don't talk about it. We're fine. We're doing our job, but you guys. I mean, we civilians. We need people like you. I can't imagine what these.
Yeah, but they're saying that even if they do feel like, even if they don't feel like, oh, I can't, I have no need to talk to anyone. Even if they do, or like, you know what, I'm in a little trouble here. I need to really talk about this. I'm like losing myself. Oh wait, I can't because my whole life at work will change.
Yeah.
There is
That's
an
the
option,
difference.
though.
It's so horrible.
I think this is very important to interject here. While the NYPD is reaching out to the members of service and offering these services, if people don't want to avail themselves to those services, go privately.
Right.
See somebody privately.
Right.
Help is there. Help is available. I've been in a position to help people that didn't want to go to the job and talk about it, but instead came to see me, and fortunately they're now helping others.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You don't have to find a counselor where you work. You can go through your private insurance, and your insurance company doesn't tell your employer that you're there. It has nothing to do with anything.
And for John Q. Public, that's more accepted. Mm-hmm. For any uniform service, police, fire, EMS, it's a sign of weakness. I always said the hardest thing I ever did in my life.
Still today? Like, you really think it is?
Absolutely.
Like, I would think, wow,
how many police officers have committed suicides 2019?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I think...
What is it? I post it all the time.
Yeah.
I follow a page called Blue Help on Facebook, and they post every confirmed police officer suicide. It's over 130.
Just this year?
Just in 2019.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Robert Shapiro says the Long Island Crisis Center Suicide Hotline is having a fundraiser walk in Long Beach this Sunday. LongIslandCrisisCenter.org. Oh, how do you like that? Excuse me.
Thanks, Rob.
What led to the idea of going out to do your program together? Was this something you've always wanted to do? Was it working with Bobby in particular? Like why? I mean, I'm assuming you have other patients, other firemen, other police officers. You know, like how did this partnership come about?
Typically my clients don't become my closest friends.
Right. That's exactly why I asked. Yeah.
Bobby is obviously a very unique individual who.
Oh, I know.
That's
my wife.
That relationship started to transition into a friendship after a period of time after Bobby had stopped seeing me regularly and was seeing Jerry. And we would get together and just sit in the diner and talk. And it really kind of came up as kind of a mutual decision that we have something here that needs to be shared. And again, that model of the God Squad, of coming from different perspectives and faith, I saw it as the survivor and the people who worked with the survivor.
Sure.
So that's afforded us an opportunity to introduce something that's new and different, and we just need to find the right mechanism to get it out into the world.
And it's funny, we had talked about, like, as you just said, the mechanism, and we've said, well, maybe we should try podcasting, where people could just tune in when they wanted. Maybe we should try a YouTube channel. Maybe we should try this or that. And then he just said one day, why are we limiting ourselves? Whatever presents itself, we'll do.
Okay.
Because there are people who are going to not show up to a program. People are not going to show up, and I know because there's certain things I just wouldn't go to.
Right.
I'm like, nah, I'm not going to that. I don't need people to see me sitting there showing my emotions. And again, advent of iPads and iPhones, and I can follow the world on my phone. You can actually get food through your phone now. You don't need to leave the house.
Right.
Right. People are complaining that they have to walk from one room to the other to go to the bathroom. Like, oh, I got to go over there. We were just talking last night. There was a video just presented of two people asleep in a Tesla, out cold while the car is self-driving.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the automation thing is, we're getting, again, it's one of Mark's biggest mantras, is like, we're getting away from this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how great is it, again, there's whoever's watching, listening, they don't have to say anything. They don't have to be revealed as their, hey, wow, oh, I'm struggling. Can I call you on Tuesday and, to talk to you about something? That won't happen here. I'll get a phone call tonight. Boy, you set something off in my head. Can you grab coffee with me tomorrow?
Right.
Okay. It just happened to me the other day. Ran to somebody. You got a minute? And I haven't spoken to this guy in months. I'm going to say years. You got a minute? Yeah, what's up? And I mean, you can see it coming because they want to speak. They need to speak. They're afraid to speak. They're afraid to let it out because of being labeled. And again, I'm speaking from experience.
Right.
The hardest thing I ever did in my life was going, I'm fucked up. I'm broken. I need help.
I hear you.
It was the hardest thing I had to do.
Yep.
And Jerry Moriarty have this joke with each other. Like, I would have rather walked into the building he was in and be naked and it be completely on fire than me, because there was a job to do, than me walk in there going, I really need help.
I've talked to several cancer patients. I say the same thing. I won't lie to you. It's going to suck what you're going to do, but you got to do it. But the hardest part is the mental aspect. You know from watching TV and movies, you got to get in and get the medications and go through maybe a surgery or something. But that mental aspect, they don't touch upon on TV a lot.
And you hit the nail on the head. You're telling them because you've gone through it.
Oh, yeah.
Because people ask me all the time, why are you torturing yourself? Just let all that shit go. Go fishing.
Right.
Go play golf. Yeah, well, I still get to do that.
Right.
But I need to do something with what happened to me because otherwise I'm going to explode. If I just sat there and was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just do a crossword puzzle today.
Right.
All right, somebody helps, need help building the deck. All right, I'll do that. I went down, as Terry called it, I went down to Island Park not because I wanted to, I needed to.
Yeah.
Those people need help.
Oh, I say it all the time. A little bit. There is a little selfishness involved. Absolutely, I'm doing that. I'm doing this a little bit for myself.
Absolutely.
I'm getting a great feeling helping you, and I'm glad it's helping. But yeah,
But
there's
it's
a little bit for myself.
it fulfills us and self-nourishes us so that we can continue to do it for somebody else.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I don't
Yes.
see it like I know you use the word selfish in a good way, but like I don't really even see it that way. Like I see it like you see what you went through, and you just have to help. You know, you see what they're going to go through, and I don't know, and it does. I mean, I know it like makes you feel better, but it makes you better for even the next person that you're going to help, because you like learn from the person going through it new.
We
Like I
learn
see that
something-
in you when you
We
do
learn
that.
something in every program, and I go, wow, I never saw that coming. And he
Right.
goes, I've been doing this 30 years, having somebody in the other chair across from me, and I've never heard somebody say that too. You know, and it's this deep into it. There's not a day, there's not a program where we're going to walk out of there going, wow, I don't think anybody got anything out of that.
Well,
Or
it's
even-
the same time as last time.
Or even
Yeah.
for you guys, oh, just another program. No,
Never.
yeah, you never would walk out like that.
Never.
Right, right.
Never.
Do you guys still? What do you call it? A show? What was the thing at the theater in White Plains? What do you call that?
It was well, that was live on stage because we
Right.
figured, let's see.
I loved it, by the
Let's
way.
try and see how that goes. The problem with that is, and again, people stonewalling. How many theaters did you reach out to in Manhattan? Because we said theaters are, what you said, they're dark. On certain days,
Sure.
we'll come in. We'll
Monday
fill your
nights.
seats. Monday nights. We'll fill your seats and we'll do a program right here. Do it for theater people.
Right.
I have a very close friend who works in the theater business, and 3 guys just got seriously hurt. I don't know if they're providing anything for them.
Right. And theater people are nuts as it is, so
Yeah.
they need to reach out.
You know, that idea came from In Treatment, which was an HBO series that ran 5 nights a week.
Gabriel Byrne, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm, yep.
And won all kinds of accolades.
Yeah.
And was a very well-liked program where people told fictitious stories about things that happened in their lives. And apparently people were glued to it with a number of awards. So I said to Bobby, why do we need actors telling the stories? What if real people on an extemporaneous basis just opened up and shared their story? And this is what Bobby and I did. It was called Sessions.
Right.
And we started off as a theatrical production, but one that you could also learn from. So the first act was Bobby talking about his story, as he started to allude to today,
Right.
going over the Brooklyn Bridge and turning to the chief and saying, my God, we can't put this out. And then the second act is all about, so what are you going to do about it, and what are you doing today? And people can see how people move from being that victim to survivor, and now the thriver that Bobby is, and
Right.
helping so many other people, touching lives.
And that is basically, I mean, I know it's very basic, but that's kind of how you treat them, right? This is where you are. What are you doing about it? Let's turn this into something positive.
You know, Tony, when the family of a 4-year-old drowns in the backyard swimming pool and comes to see me, there's not very much I can do to change what happened.
Sure.
In fact, there's nothing I can do to change what happened. What I can help people to do is to find the ability, at least at some point in time, to take that painful energy and use it to propel themselves to do something really meaningful. Look at John Walsh. His son, his son Adam was abducted from a Sears store. And what did he do? He and his wife, instead of separating, which is what happens most often when your child is murdered, they pulled together and they founded the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. He's done countless programs and countless things, starting Amber Alert, to help people. So I believe very strongly, and I impart this with the people that I work with, don't be defined by what's happened to you. Be defined by how you choose to respond to it.
Right. Wow.
It took me. He took me to a place, and I've said this to probably 1,000 times. Whether we're getting on a plane to go somewhere to do this, whether we're driving together, whether we're eating lunch, if you told me that this is where I was going to end up as a result of this day and the madness that went on,
Right.
I would have said, no way. No way. Absolutely not.
Right.
Never saw this. Never would think, sitting here like this on this day, that would be in my wheelhouse to even do that. That I should be sitting at home, curled up in a ball. And I won't lie. This morning, it's 18 years later.
Right.
My wife my sister-in-law and my mother, who's in town this week, they will validate that I was a bag of shit this morning.
Just this morning?
Well, yeah, just this morning. My mother can probably tell more stories of that. But I was virtually irretrievable.
Yeah.
Like, it hit, and it hit hard. And what hit for me, and a big thing for me, is my mortality. Because how many times I said it? I'm a dead guy walking. I should be dead. There's no method to, nothing in training or nothing that went on. It's just like, you were either dead or you weren't. Somebody just said, I think my mother said to me yesterday, I wonder why there aren't more guys out there who went through what you went through. And I was like, Mom, most of them are dead.
That actually was one of my questions here. So there's nobody out there doing something along these lines, huh?
There are people in the fire business talking about the command structure and the technical aspects.
Okay, right.
But there's nobody out there.
Wow.
Because and listen, and again, it comes back to, it's never from day one. The catharsis in writing is definitely helpful. This helps me.
Yeah.
This pulled me out of the hole this morning.
Sure.
Because I had something to do. And I know I'm going to walk in my house later. My wife and my mother are going to look at me. They're going to be like, I can't believe that at 8 o'clock this morning you were sitting at the kitchen table completely unraveled. And by 9:30, you pulled it together. That's not because I said, all right, get your shit together, Bob, and went to some self-therapeutic mode. I just went, there are people that need to talk today. There are people that need to listen and need to feel and go, wow, he's banged up and he was crying this morning and I was crying this morning and he went through it and I went through it, or I'm going through my mother being sick or my kid is sick. That's the propulsion into do something with it,
right,
and makes that difference. And as far as I know, there is nobody, as I would say, throwing themselves on their sword,
right,
about getting their ass handed to them, thinking about suicide, thinking about not wanting to be here anymore, not giving a shit about anything, closing, becoming that I'm staying home, not talking to anybody, and not being who I was.
Yeah, again, the comments are still flying through. A lot of people, you're an
If
amazing
there's
human.
anybody questions, let them fire away.
Kurt Knapp is watching.
It's not a lot of questions. It's more of just people thanking you, thanking both of you actually for being here and shedding light on things like this. Jennifer, is this? Forgive me, I don't know how to say your wife's maiden name.
Ragusin.
It is Ragusin.
Nice Irish name.
Jennifer Ragusin Gallipoli.
Gallipoli. Another fine Irish name.
You're an incredible human, she says. It's amazing how many people you have helped. Tom Kearney says wise words.
She's the bearer of 2 of my nuggets.
That's right.
Yeah. 2 little girls.
Jane Fagan Senn, love you, MC. XOXO.
That's my mother.
That's your mom?
That's my mom.
Oh.
So, but who's MC?
MC is Mother Chicken. She's the mother chicken.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
I am not.
She laid the eggs, right?
She did.
Okay. All right.
She did.
Is that a name you gave her, Bonnie?
No, she did.
Oh, she made that name. Oh. Bonnie Scalisi, God bless all the brave men and women who had to go through this. Okay, so all right,
actually,
go ahead.
I do want to say one thing, because
Sure.
a lot of people who are watching, a lot of people who have either written to me, texted, called, because of what I write and the way I write, I think there's almost like a holy shit, he's on the ragged edge, because he's like just putting all this out there. And Bobby Senn is doing okay. I have my shit days like everybody else does.
Right.
And I do what I had to do from what Marcus taught me to do to take care of myself, what Jerry's taught me how to take care of myself, like everybody else. I'm getting a head cold. All right, got to take some vitamins. I need to take a nap and lay low and do some Jewish penicillin and feel better. It's the same way with this. And when I write, like I say, I do it for a number of reasons and post like that, and people go, oh my God, I can't believe you're posting about people jumping out windows. Well, it happened.
Right.
And I'm not going to deny it.
Right.
Denying that is like, again, I'm not getting into political things. It's like tearing down statues because they didn't like what the guy did. Yeah, but that's what he did. And let's learn from it and move forward.
Right.
So see what I write, take it at face value and go, wow, that was a really shitty day. That was terrible stuff.
Right.
But everybody I meet outside of New York goes, was it really as bad as it looked on TV? And I go, no, it wasn't. It was 1,000 times worse.
Sally herself has asked questions like that because Sally, she's from here, but at the time was not living here. So she was what you were in Boston at the time, right?
No, I was actually in California, and I had a job where in California I had I had to start work around 6 in the morning. And so I'm like listening to the news, I'm hearing what's going on. And for like, there was this like half a second of relief because I said to myself, no one's at work yet. And then I realized half a second later, 3-hour difference. And I just remember this moment of like, oh my God, what's happening? Oh, at least that. Oh no, you know.
There are tales of living and dying because of it was the first day of school for a bunch of people.
Right.
And they stayed home to take their kids to school. Firefighters who passed away happened in my house. One guy was working in the engine, one guy was working in the ladder, working for another guy, and they were like, no, you just stay over there, I'll stay over here.
Yeah.
I mean, as simple as that.
Right.
The engine drove over the bridge, those guys never came back. The truck drove over the bridge, and they did. Those guys could have swapped.
Right.
Guys living with that. That's doing what you call it a mutual. I work for you on Tuesday, you work for me on Wednesday.
Right.
And, it's as simple as it happens 3 times a week.
Right.
But that day,
was
it becomes a
big
curse.
deal. It was a big deal.
And it's the make a left, make a right. And people say to me all the time, like, how the hell did you get out of there? And I go, some guys made a left, some guys made a right. It's where I was standing. It's the direction my body was facing. It's where I landed. And there was no like, hey, teach me how to survive a building collapse. Be lucky.
Right.
I mean, you think about that on on a weekly basis. Like you're so upset you didn't make a light because you're going to be late, but you missed an accident because you missed 30 seconds of getting there like closer to on time. Like you never really like and I had one of my best friends, her big Irish family, her mom who was struggling so hard with cancer passed. And the only reason he was one of my best friends too, her brother wasn't in the building is because they were down the road at the funeral. It's like all these like things that everyone's got a million stories to tell.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have 5 million, but
the stories of what you call it miracles, you call it irony, you call it dumb Irish luck of missing it by that much, or should have been at work, or a guy, I had one guy say to me, I'm glad you were working and it wasn't me. You can run faster than I can. Literally what he said. And I'm like, that's where his head went.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God, I can't believe we even thought that.
Yeah.
And guys, most of the time, this guy going, how the hell did you get out of there? And I have no idea. There was no, okay, if this happens, I'm going to do this. If this happens, I'm going to do that. It just was.
Right.
Well, that's the thing too, right? I mean, again, the whole day, the whole thing. I mean, the planes hit, and that's crazy in itself. Then you realize they're under attack, but then you never. Who expected them to come flying down like that, right?
That never crossed my mind.
Right.
I'm sure it crossed somebody's mind going, oh, yeah, that's the way this building. I mean, now I look at it from the scientific point of it and go,
in
Right.
retrospect.
trust construction, it only can hold up to this much heat and all that blah, blah, science,
Exactly.
fire science
Right.
crap that the John Q. public doesn't know about.
Right.
There's 2 schools of thought on it. It's like people go, wow, that was terrible, and then there's the knucklehead factor who thinks it was loaded with explosives and all the conspiracy theorists.
Right.
Which I don't entertain any of that. I see it, and it's again, coping strategy that he gave me, that Jerry gave me was, you could dive into an argument like that, and that's become one of the detriments of Facebook is the political arguing that goes on.
Yeah.
People, I have people who have unfriended me because I'll make fun of the president. Well, people make fun of everything, and I make fun
Exactly.
of a lot of things. And again, one of the things we talked about is like why I make fun of things, because if you really dive in and look at certain things, it'll consume you, and it's laugh or cry.
Oh, yeah, all right, so that's something we talked about. We touched upon it. We talked about it a little before we went on the air. Is the humor of it? Humor obviously helps anything. In a situation like this, there must be borders. I mean, you wouldn't. Do you ever make a joke about this particular day?
It depends on who you're with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
This morning, I could pull it right up. My friend Pete, who I worked with, great guy. His family is like my family. Guy across the street, Ray, again, his family is my family. Every morning on September 11th, every year, we write Happy 9/11. Happy 9/11. Why? Because you're still alive.
right.
And my uncle actually quoted that to me. He's like, oh, Happy 9/11. And I was like, are you bent? Like, Happy 9/11. He's like, you're alive. It's not sad for our family. He goes, there are other families that. He goes, our family would be destroyed over here.
Sure.
You know, and I was like, I never looked at it that way. So it doesn't even say Happy 9/11. He writes HNE, which is Happy 9/11.
Right.
And if I'm being an asshole one day and he is, and we're playing golf or something, and like he'll hit a terrible shot, and I'll go, Happy 9/11. Like, you can't get mad at that. Like,
Right.
So yes, within the firefighting community, that dark humor, black humor, self-deprecation thing, you know, when you're coughing, a couple guys have even said when you're with a bunch of other guys and you're coughing so hard, you go, wow, I wonder who I just coughed up because of what you took in. And again, because I could sit there and go, oh my God, my lungs are destroyed. I've been sick for a month. My voice is wrecked. I mean, you can hear my voice sound like I've been chewing on marbles or, you know, smoking Pall Malls for 30 years. And you can either feed into that part of it or not. And again, Mark taught me to, like, don't feed into that shit.
Right.
You know, Jerry, same thing. Don't go down that route because it will consume you.
Right.
You know, don't project, as they would say. Don't project what's going to be wrong or bad. And those strategies work. It saved my life.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know, stop that, you know, that evil thing from going in your brain.
Right.
And a great thing to do is make fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on who's making fun of it.
Right. And like you said,
I
who
can
you're
make fun
joking
of certain
with.
things
Right.
because of my, you know, me doing that. You know,
Right.
I made a joke about. I said, you know, you say about, you know, with your regard to cancer in your leg. I made a joke, and like a couple people were like, oh my God, you said that. You can't believe you said that. You and I can joke around with each other that way, and there's absolutely, you know, no offense taken, and I know that without even discussing it.
Right. Right.
So,
All right. Let's
the
take
phone's
that.
ringing.
You're live on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Sally, it's Michael.
Hi, Michael. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. I said hi to Sally, though. How come Sally didn't say hi?
Sally, say hi to Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Hi, Sally, and hello to guests as well. Bobby, very cool guy, very cool story. It's been very interesting listening to you this morning. And also, shout out to your friend Billy Mays that you got there with you.
Billy Mays. That's awesome.
I'm missing something.
Billy
here.
Mays. He's
Billy
one of
Mays?
the infomercial guys. Has a beard. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jesus. Now I can't get that out of
Just
my
having
head.
a little fun. I'm a bit of a Bobby. I'm a bit of a jokester. I'm kind of a beloved caller on the program. So
He is.
nice
Yes, he
to
is.
meet you.
Amazing.
I got a joke for you today, and I'll tell you what, guys, this one is particularly bad. I'm not sure how I even sort of wrote this as a joke and tried to pass it off as a joke, so apologies in advance. Again, this is sort of like a child coming up with a joke, but this is my joke that I came up with. It's about Popeye's... oh, wait, that's not the one I want. Hang on. Oh, yeah, no, that's the one. That's
Exactly
the one.
what time
A
this
man
morning did
pulled
you
out
start
a gun.
drinking?
This is Michael.
Well,
We love him.
Come on now. Okay, here's my joke, and it is bad again. You're not even going to believe that a grown man came up with this joke, but here it is. A man pulled out a gun at a Popeyes restaurant when he heard they had no more chicken sandwiches. He also objected to any new laws on bun control.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Now,
You'll be here all
know
week.
What the weird
kind of
thing
your waitress.
is?
Try the
It's
veal.
like the weird thing is it's such an obvious joke, but for some reason I do have an explanation as to how I wrote it.
Of course you
and
do.
The reason that I wrote it is this news item caught my eye because it was weird, so I thought a joke might engage an audience. I don't know why I thought that. I don't know what's wrong with me and why I thought that.
Mark has an
But
appointment
when I
open at
saw
1:30 this afternoon.
I thought we had a little critical incident stress debriefing for the
Parking lot.
Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you. Sorry. Possible handles on this topic include gun, Popeyes, and chicken sandwiches. The most unexpected element of the topic is gun, so I decided that had to be one of the handles. I briefly considered using Popeyes as the second handle, but concluded that associations like spinach, Bluto, and olive oil would be too unfamiliar to most people because I'm super old and I don't know new references. So my two handles became gun and chicken sandwiches. The latter has association bun, which rhymes with gun, so I realized I could possibly construct a punchline using punchline maker number 4, find a play on words in the topic.
Are you
So that's
seeing
what I
one
did,
or an
boys.
entire team of psychologists?
Bobby, come on! I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm an accomplished comedy writer, sir.
Okay, sir. Don't you? That's it. Call me sir. Hang up on that man. I have to interject. My
Okay,
friend
bye,
Katie,
guys.
she calls
No,
today.
Michael, wait.
Happy Yay You Didn't Die Day.
I like that.
Yeah.
Happy, yeah, you didn't die. Oh, yeah, there it is right there. Very nice.
She got me a book, actually, last year. It's called All My Friends Are Dead.
Oh,
She can joke around with me like that.
Is that really a
her
name
dad's
of a
farmer.
book?
Oh, yeah, it's funny. It's about dinosaurs.
oh.
See? Yeah.
Well, there we go. So that was Michael's call.
Can we take a phone call from a non-sociopath?
Now, that's what Michael does. He tells a bad
He's
joke, and then his
very
explanation is usually what gets
I
us.
think
yes.
it might be the fact that he speaks like this.
We're still trying to figure him out. If you hear him closely, he's obviously on a microphone. So we don't know who it is, but we think he's of some other podcast or radio show, and he's
That's cool.
and we asked him flat out a few weeks ago, who are you and what you sound like you're on a mic, and he hung up. So we're on to him, and we think we may have an idea of where he is or who he's connected to, but and I still think that's who it is.
Fire up the drones.
Yeah, right, exactly. So wow, he makes me laugh. That guy.
Tommy Kearney just wrote, that was painful. Tommy, that's awesome. Michael the joke explainer.
But yeah, but you're absolutely right. You bring up, you said something about getting a cold before, and that's what I remember first coming out of, when I was getting healthy again, was the little things like that. That's what you strive for. You want to just have a cold. You want to just get mad at all the laundry you have to do. Those simple things is what you're looking for.
I even wrote, somebody asked me, somebody had asked me, what's bothering you most about being sick? And I go, coughing. Coughing for a half hour straight. I'll complain about that because that sucks. I don't like being sick, having a head cold. You just kind of roll through it. Which, that being said, my wife gets a head cold, and nothing changes. And I've always said that about women in general is women get a head cold and nothing changes. Men get a head cold, and we need 2 weeks off.
Oh, we're
Yeah.
And I have a huge vagina when it comes to that.
Oh, without a doubt. Here too.
Hopefully it's not Michael again.
Hey, you're live on the air. Who's this?
Good morning, everybody. You said non-sociopath or sociopath?
Non.
All right, I got to hang up then. Bye.
Alrighty.
That's all right. That works.
That was Eric's brother, and he does not want to talk to him. Eric Felon says, where did Popeye go on his honeymoon? To Mount Olive. But welcome to our show, folks.
Yeah.
Lorna Mund is watching. Hello, Lorna.
So I don't know where we are in time, but from
It's about 11:15.
okay, from coming from my perspective to anybody who's listening, watching, who's going to call me today, talk to me today, is take care of yourself, get through the day, don't do anything dumb, watch your alcohol intake if you're hurting. That's a big one. I always tell guys that, there's that old saying, in vino veritas, and there's a lot of truth to that. And I've seen guys get guys are doing okay, and then they get banged up. It's beers 1, 2, and 3 are fun. Beer 4 is the fuse is lit, and beer 5 is I wonder if he's going to get arrested.
Right.
And that, unfortunately, we've talked about suicides, and we've talked about not taking care of yourself. There's the doing harm to others and winding up in trouble. And the DWI thing is, you got to be careful with that. Guys will just drink and get behind the wheel.
Right.
And do what you need to do to take care of yourself. It's what I do. Today, I'll go home after this. I unfortunately have a friend whose son is in the hospital, and part of today is that the life goes on. I'll be visiting them in the hospital, make sure they're doing okay, and taking care of them. Because just because today is what it is doesn't mean that everybody else's life isn't. They're going through their own turmoil.
Right. Absolutely right.
Somebody's going to get diagnosed with cancer today. Somebody's going to have a heart attack today. Somebody's going to get a car accident today. And it's not going to take away from what the day is. They'll link it to it. Oh, September 11th, and I got a car accident.
Right.
Just as well as a good thing. Somebody's gonna have a baby today. 2 of my friends, it's their birthday today.
Yeah, we have several friends with the birthday.
Sean Donovan, is his birthday today.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And just go, wow, and he's whatever. He's just stuck with that. Can't move it. It's like being born on Christmas.
Yeah, right.
You'd like to move it to July and get a little bit more attention paid to you, not one Christmas present with 2 labels, Happy Birthday, Merry Christmas on it. You get gypped.
Yeah, they should move it, skip right over it. So I'm just reading some of the notes here. Lernerandsenn.com. That's where that's the best place to find you guys. Is there a Facebook page or anything like that as well, or is it just lernerandsenn.com?
Well, it's through the National Center for
Okay.
Emotional Wellness.org, or you can go directly to lernerandsenn.com and learn a little bit more about our program.
And listen, if there's people out there who go, wow, I would love to bring you into my school. I'm a teacher, I'm a principal, whatever it is, just sit and talk to us about it. We'll fill you in, and we'll make it work.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be 10,000 people.
Right.
It's
Right.
if there's a bunch of people that are hurting. We've been in rooms a little bit bigger than this, speaking to a dozen people, and 2 or 3 of them walk away feeling good, and we walk away going, okay, we helped somebody.
Right. When did you retire? Was it? And it was from
Yeah.
effects.
Yes. I'll rifle off my illnesses: COPD, reactive airway disease, chronic sinusitis, post-traumatic stress disorder, and the combination thereof.
Forgive my
Change
ignorance.
everything. No,
Is
no.
PTSD something that people can be officially cured of, or something that you say, okay, you don't have it anymore?
Well, PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
I think we should clarify the difference between traumatic stress, which is a normal response to an abnormal event,
Okay.
versus post-traumatic stress disorder, where our ability to function in the world is severely compromised.
Okay.
Certainly, people can learn adaptive coping strategies like Bobby has.
Sure.
Being here is very adaptive. It's a healthy choice of taking that painful energy rather than pulling the covers over his head and lying in bed through the day.
Right,
Look
sure.
what he's chosen to do.
Sure.
So
Good,
people can
good.
learn to cope.
Okay. All right. You're live on the air. Who's this?
All right, I'll try not to be a sociopath.
Try hard.
I have a question.
Yeah, I saw you posted
Yeah.
your question. Go ahead and ask it. He did touch upon it a few minutes ago, but go ahead.
Oh, he did?
No, that's
Well,
right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
How do you guys feel about the wacky, well, I guess I'm telling you how I feel, but the conspiracy theorists, and don't you think that takes away from and is a little disrespectful to the actual events and the folks that passed away?
Is that to me?
Oh, shit. Did you hear him?
I did.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So either one.
But
Either
it-
one.
it's-
I
it's
just
a
feel
matter
it
of-
takes.
It's a matter of
Go ahead.
choice, and I'll do the, First Amendment thing. Freedom of speech. You can say what you want, write what you want, as long as you're not, I guess, threatening or harming anybody. They're entitled to that. They're entitled to believe what they want. And I like some things came out. The first thing that came out, I'm not even going to get say who what the video was or who it was, but I watched it and I was like, why would you put this much energy into this? It doesn't change anything. And I've had friends say to me, did you hear that, it's an inside job with the government and there were no taxi cabs down there that day and all this great. And I was like, yeah, there were taxi cabs there because I watched a woman land on one.
Yeah, right.
And that ended that conversation.
Right.
There were, people saying, there was a big crowd. I think accused of there was a group of Muslims on the other side of the river jumping up and down and cheering, and nobody can prove that. It's feeding into, as Mark said, you can feed into one thing and feed into another. And I've had it posed to me, and I just don't entertain it because I'm not going to go there. Because the bottom line is, nothing's going to change. So I really don't. They can do that all they want. Today, I guarantee you, there's a spot for protesters, and they're down there jumping up and down and screaming, with signs saying it was an inside job. This one did 9/11. This one did 9/11. We're all being scammed. It's the government and all that. And I literally just walk by them.
Right, because it doesn't change the end effect, which was losing friends.
No.
But do you feel it's disrespectful, or you don't even?
I don't give it any energy whatsoever.
Okay.
I don't give it any juice. But there are people and families that I know that get wired up over it, and I go, stop feeding the wolf.
Yeah.
Stop giving that thing energy because all they're going to do is run with it.
Yeah.
And if and some of them might not even want to try to prove anything. They're just looking for an argument. I changed my Facebook picture. It said, "I'll argue with anyone for $1."
Right.
Because people will do that, and they'll just go, "Oh, I can get this guy going."
Right.
and they're just looking for an argument.
Yeah, I don't
and then they're on to
understand
their
that.
next cause,
Right.
know?
Yeah. The next thing to
whatever it
fight
might be.
about.
But
Right.
that's okay. It's all right question.
All right. So we have a few minutes. Yeah, we have a little more than 5 minutes. Assuming, right? You guys have to go. Okay.
Good.
What's the rest of the day for you like?
I have to make a stop at the hospital, see my friend
Oh,
and
that's
his
right.
family.
Sorry, you said that. Yeah.
Other than that, it's take it as it comes.
So
Used to be very pre-programmed.
Right. It used to be
In
flooded
Manha-
with
in Ma-
memorials.
in
I would
Manhattan
think.
at
Yeah.
8 a.m. Do the Manhattan thing for the bell ringing, and then pay respects in certain spots, and then see certain people, and then leave, and then get on a train and come home, and then go to how to hit all 3 cemeteries. And I've if I had done that today by 3 o'clock, I would have been my battery would have been on empty.
Sure.
Yeah.
And again, it's like it sucks the life out of you, And there's some, again, unwritten rules in the fire department, police department is if you're not working, you show up, and that's the funerals and memorial services.
Right.
It's part of the deal. One thing I will say that definitely changed within our job was when the anniversary of September 11 comes up, nobody keeps any tabs on anybody. You just go do what you need to do. I know guys that right now that are at the beach fishing with their kids.
Right.
They yanked them out of school. We're going fishing.
Mm-hmm.
I know families that are away, just going. We're getting out of Dodge.
Right,
Last year
right.
I went away. I went to California because they had been asking. There was a little elementary school there that we're friends with the principal, and she was like, "I'd really like to come to you and talk to my teachers and my students." And I just said to Chris, "Fuck it, let's go do that."
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's how the day will end. I kind of already put the disclaimer out to my wife. I don't want people, if anybody's coming over the house, just kind of shut that down. I'll probably be in bed by 9 o'clock.
Because you're old.
I will, yes.
Yeah.
I will not get sucked into that, staring at the TV, which I used to do too. You start watching, the
Yeah.
9/11 video's on.
Oh, yeah. I still do that every year.
Countdown to 9/11. It's literally, it's like, okay, I'm going to take this bottle, I'm going to smash it, and I'm just going to start jabbing it in my arm, because inflicting pain on myself.
Right.
I'm not going to feed into that, and I would rather, my nephews will be at my house. I'll be doing Common Core math at 3 o'clock this afternoon is what I'll be doing.
Nice.
And hanging with them, and who knows what Declan will come out with, and I'll have fun with him.
Right.
You know?
But if he was still glued to the TV, that would be okay, right? It's just a matter of what you need to do to get through the day.
Well, that's a good point, Tony. How much television media should we take in? Gets to the point where you can actually become traumatized by infusing yourself with too much media exposure.
Sure. Well, that's what I'm saying. Whatever it is, if he was glued to the TV, or if he was, doing math homework. It's whatever you need to do to get through the day, or no? Or so you're saying no, I guess,
Well,
because
as
the
long
TV
as
is
it's not too much of the exposure to adversity, I think that goes for any kind of traumatic event.
Right.
That we don't overdo the exexposure. There's a tendency to do that nowadays.
Right. Yeah, especially with social media and all the different
Exactly.
outlets. Right. This might be a weird question, but is this a busier time of the year for you? Do you get a lot of calls, or a lot of the firemen, policemen, call you looking to talk, or?
There are kind of waves that I see in practice in getting calls. I'm sure that this program may precipitate some phone calls.
Okay.
Before this program, there's a lot of difficulty with children adjusting to school.
Sure, okay.
Whatever's happening in that particular time seems to bring on the calls.
The live theater event, was that the only? And again, I don't know, so you correct me. Was that the only public event you did? Because you normally do groups like a fire department or a school will bring you in, but
Hicksville High School was public. We offered it up.
They brought you in, but
spoke with
okay.
the superintendent at the time, and he let us do our thing, which was awesome.
Okay.
And other than that, it's usually private or requested.
Okay. Right.
A fire we approach we'll offer, after the shooting in Vegas, I'll reach out to the police departments and fire departments from my contact end.
Right.
And he'll reach out to the, other officiants, because if I send a letter, again, it's all in the delivery. I send a letter as, retired firefighter Bobby Senn, that probably goes from that guy's hand into the trash. It comes from Dr. Mark Lerner, clinical psychologist, and it's about an event. Suddenly okay.
Oh, okay.
And people will at least respond.
Right.
You know, and might not act on it, but at least they'll
Right.
acknowledge your existence.
But public events is not. I mean, again, I know you did the theater thing, but that's not something you guys entertain more. Just do you think there'd be a response of people?
There's an interesting story that goes along with when we did that production. We were actually offered an off-Broadway contract to bring it to off-Broadway, which would mean 8 shows, 8 programs a week.
Sure.
Where we would have Bobby in the first act telling his story, and the second act, who he is today.
Right.
And Bobby and I had a heart-to-heart talk, and we said, as exciting as this sounds, of doing this as an off-Broadway production in New York City, this is real. This isn't a man playing the role of somebody else. This is extemporaneous. It's unscripted. Anything can happen.
Okay.
It would be just too wearing. So
Right.
we actually turned it down.
Okay.
But
I
that
could
doesn't
see
obviate
why.
the fact
It'd
that
be
we
too hard.
still continue to
No.
bring this program as needed.
Because you have to go to a certain place doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You saw. I have to go to a place that I can go there, and because of taking care of myself, I'm able to go there and then come out of it like.
Still
and
not
most
an
of-
easy
I'm
thing
not-
to do.
No, because it's can literally suck you down the drain.
Right.
This week, there was a firefighter that part of his remains were identified, and it was like, oh my God, it's 18 years later, and this family's now having a funeral
Right.
for something 18 years ago, and I'm like, it racked my brain for hours,
Sure.
like sitting there going, oh my God, like, with the way the technology is and the way the city medical examiner's office runs, they have the opportunity, a family at this point, with what the remains are, and there is tractor-trailer loads of remains
Yeah.
that they are sifting through and like trying to cross-match with DNA, and I really don't know how that science works, but they gave families the option to opt out at this point and go, we find something. And again, families are being notified, and it's not like they go, we found Sally, here's Sally, and they're literally going like,
Right.
here's Bobby,
Yeah.
Right.
and a family has to then absorb that and deal with that.
Right.
And again, the
And deal with
And
that
they're-
more than once, I would think. So because if they're going like this, that's a small piece. Then they might find another small piece
And
5
that-
year later. Now you're
that-
doing it again.
that has
The
happened.
story
That has
you
happened.
told a few days ago with grabbing a bucket and giving
Yeah.
talk about that, because that was like that stuck with me all day.
That was the middle of March, a really heavy time down there in terms of we had gotten down to the core part of the South Tower, and bottoms of stairwells where the lobby had collapsed into, and there was just a string of days where it was 18 body recoveries, 20 body recoveries. March itself, I think in 3 weeks we had 88 body recoveries that month. And how weird it is, you were happy. You were like, all right, I remember going back to the firehouse one night and going, we got 18 guys out tonight. And I say we, there's
Yeah.
hundreds of guys on this pile. It's
Right.
not two.
Right.
And you'd find your spot and just start picking away.
Right.
And digging, and they bring in some heavy machinery to pull things apart. And you were going by two things, what you could see and, unfortunately, what you could smell. And that smell of death is extremely remarkable. You won't forget it. And you know it the second it hits you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was up in this part where there must have been a raging inferno there for months, early on, deep within the wreckage. And there was 2.5 to 3 feet of just ashes in this one part. And I just said, let me see if I can find anything in here. And I started picking apart and literally moving ashes by the bucket full. And I started finding pieces of metal, and I found these rings. And I was like, man, those look in my head, I'm going, man, those look like rings to suspenders from a fireman's pants. And there's one here, one in the back.
Yeah.
And I found 3 of them. And I go, wow, all right, I'll keep going. Then there's these little metal clasps that are down here that attach to the pants. And I found a bunch of those.
Mm-hmm.
And it made my hair's on my neck now, I'm telling this. And then I found the 2 steel tips from his boots. And I was like, this was a fireman. And I just took all of that, and wherever he was, I just scooped up as much of the ashes that would fill another 5-gallon bucket.
Right.
And I just walked off the pile, And again, this is one story out of 1,000 stories
I
of
know,
guys
I
finding.
know.
It's not just me. I'm speaking for the hundreds of guys doing this. It wasn't just me doing that. And I walk off, and I walk up, and there was a chief I knew up at the command post, and I literally was like, "You're not going to believe this." And I put it down in front of him, and he looks in the bucket and sees all that. And I go, "Steel tips." I found clasps from the jacket, still clasped together, like
Right.
all 6 of them.
Right.
And we walked up, and I handed it to him, and he goes, "What am I supposed to do with that?" And I was like, "I don't know, but that's one of our guys." Never to be identified, never to know who he was. But I couldn't just leave it there.
Right.
Couldn't just go, "Oh, yeah, guy's bunker." Whoop. You'd find little different things, and you'd go like, "Wow, some family's going to want this."
Yeah.
You'd find from pieces of people's desks, like there were the pen sets,
Mm-hmm.
the emblems, found a couple of those from the Port Authority because they had offices there. And I gave it to Port Authority families, here, you probably want this, whereas most people just go, "Oh, this is junk," and just throw it in the trash can. So, again, those are crazy stories that stick with you. I will spare you the horrid ones. And, I could bring 5 guys in here and tell stories literally for 10 hours about what this guy found, what I found, what this guy found, what that guy found, and what they went through to get people out. And all I will say is that in order to send people home who had, were victims, the extent to what we had to do to extricate them out of there was just beyond comprehension. And so some people ask, like, how could you just be there all day doing that? I've talked to other guys, and they've said they literally out-of-body experience.
Mm-hmm.
One guy was like, "I was in Virginia at my uncle's house the whole time I was there. That's all I thought about while I was doing this absolutely grotesque, horrid work."
Right.
And the same thing would happen with me. I would just shut everything off. And you had to do what you had to do to get through the task. But the problem was there was nothing done afterwards for us or with us to normalize that, if that's even possible, or
Right.
to just go like, okay, a guy like him standing there with 20 of us after coming out of 18 hours of that shit, just going, "You're going to dream about this.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to wake up in the middle of the night re-experiencing this. You're going to be driving down the street and smell something, and all of a sudden your hands are going to start shaking. You're going to see this again constantly."
Yeah.
It's a normal thing to happen. It's terrible, and I'm sorry. Hundreds of guys, I would guarantee you, would have saved my life. Probably saved maybe extended my career a little bit longer emotionally.
Right.
But none of that stuff is in place because I just don't think they were prepared for it.
Right.
They were
'cause
excavating 16
nothing was
acres
so
of shit.
incredibly not normal. Like just the idea of like just a regular person finding a body and being so thrilled and happy about it. Like that alone, because most people you find a body and that will stay with you forever. And you were at a point of just finding joy in it because you were helping another family find their person. Like it's everything is
And
about
it was purpose. You found
awful.
purpose in being there. Like, okay,
Right.
we're going to send this guy home, and it's going to give that family another word I hate: closure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which Lee Ielpi always says about. I got my son back, but that doesn't give me closure. My son's still dead. He'll always be dead.
Right.
There's no closure.
Right.
Your life just goes, off in another direction.
All right. It is after 11:30. We consider all day. We go live till 1, but if you guys need to go, that you need to go. I didn't know if there was anything you wanted to talk about before you go. I mean, it's your call. You leave anytime.
We can sit for a while.
All right.
Yeah,
It's
just
up to you.
if I could just kind of throw in a
Anything,
thought,
yeah,
thought that I
please.
was having is we're talking about physical versus emotional. I often say that if somebody's bleeding profusely, we don't wait to try to stop the bleeding. But why is it that when somebody is in this intense, raw emotional state, we don't address the intensity of the emotional hemorrhage? So, as I say, when I do speaking engagements or I'm with Bobby, I'll turn to the audience and I'll say, when you see that ambulance racing to the scene, somebody is sick or injured, I'm thinking that somebody is terribly scared,
Right.
alone, overwhelmed, and that this event they will probably remember for the rest of their lives.
Right. You're stuck in traffic, but that poor bastard, is
to
in,
the
is
person
in
that's
pain,
responding
right?
to that call, it's just another call. To the person that makes that call and is in that accident, they'll remember it forever.
Right.
So why are we not addressing the emotional hemorrhage? And that's what I'm really focusing on in my work.
Right. And again, you're not just firemen, policemen. You're Again, it's any traumatic
People.
situation. Right. People. Right.
Yeah, the emotional hemorrhage, like in everyday life. Like when I was living in California, I lived very close to a children's hospital, and I lived there for years, and you talk about like people with like road rage, and I never have road rage. I just don't, and I think it's kind of because like living there, I knew between like a 2-mile point, people were going to drive like fucking idiots, and either you realize, and then all of a sudden it hits you one day. You have this like paradigm shift that people are crazy in this 2-mile period because they're either driving to a hospital with a sick child. They're driving to a hospital to because they got a call saying their child has taken a turn for the worse. Please get up and get here now. Because some kids are in the hospital for months. You know, you go home, you walk your dog, you come back, but you get the phone call saying, it's bad, get here now. So they're driving there. Or some people are leaving the hospital with news that is just insurmountable, that you're driving home thinking to yourself, when you get home, you think, how did I get there? I don't even know how I got there because all I was thinking about was the news that I just got. You know, and so when people like get like so upset, like, oh, he cut me off, like I never think that because I always think, what did they just go through? You know, and it takes you like every day.
I remember driving home once from digging at the World Trade Center. It's because I got pulled over for speeding.
Yeah.
Other than that, I could not tell you, and I probably just zombie, comatose,
Right.
or completely overwhelmed or overrun. And absolutely, especially around a children's hospital. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that sparks a memory in my head. Doing all the digging, were you? I know there was some rumblings at the time, and of course it came out later. The physical dangers of going through all that. Were you thinking about any of that at the time, or this is just no? I'm gonna, I want to find people and send them home.
I wasn't there for any of the because I was hurt in the collapse, and so I didn't get back there until the 15th, which was the following Saturday. I think was the first day I went back.
Okay.
There was a bunch of question marks whether other buildings were going to collapse. So they had set up like a system where if you hear a certain sound, take cover. You know, and again, just like something you just never trained for, like taking cover.
Right.
And when they would make that noise, some people would start moving, and there were other guys who were just like, falls on me, it falls on me. I don't care.
Yeah.
Again, because of the enormity of the event, and
Right.
you're just totally overwhelmed. And again, something we haven't discussed, we're sitting here like this building collapses, and the three of us die, and you survive. There's a whole other piece of your recovery that goes along with that. And it's the survivor guilt, which I had to learn, which it was. And as I wrote just either yesterday or the day before about Father Judge, Mike Judge was standing where you are in relation to me
Right.
when the collapse happened. And for a long time I was like, wait a minute. This guy has done unbelievable work. That guy dies, and I get to go home.
The picture of him then carrying him, that gets me every time.
When I tell you, every time that the subject of the World Trade Center comes up or I think about something, that man crosses my mind. Because he was just pacing through the lobby, doing his thing. As I joked around, he's talking to his boss. Doing his thing, like, hey, if you can stop this shit from happening, it'll be all right. And I know I alluded to my, conversion to atheism of not even believing, and other people have kind of laid into me a little bit about that. It's been like, that wasn't God, that was evil, and everybody has their feeling about that, and I respect that.
Believe. Yeah.
I respect that. It's just where I am, and the guilt that follows if somebody's killed or hurt and you're not, is brutal. For a long time, I was like, okay, why Mike Judge?
Right.
And why not me?
Right.
Let me ask about that, if you don't mind. Not to interrupt you, but does that happen a lot? Because hearing Bobby talk about that, because it's like, that's close to him, that feeling of like, why am I here and the other guy isn't? Do a lot of people feel that? Because that struck me as something that I don't know that everyone would go to.
It's a good question. It's called survivor guilt. Why am I here? Why was I spared? Why me? And for a lot of people, it's very painful, and it can go on for a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure it's awful. I wouldn't, I don't know, I wouldn't think that it would be like something that everyone would go to.
I run into a couple of priests that knew Father Judge, and they would show up down there while we were working, and it would sift out, oh, Bobby was with Mike Judge, weren't happy. And they'd come over and they'd talk to me. And, I would talk about, like, how guilty I feel about being alive. And two of them specifically laid into me pretty hard. Not what I expected. Not that I was looking for embrace, but I didn't expect them. But they were almost like finger in your face, like, Michael Judge will never rest while you're, having adverse feelings about him
Yeah,
loving you not.
yeah.
And I'm like, you're standing there. I literally am still
Because it wouldn't occur to him,
after.
No.
No.
It wouldn't occur to him that you would feel that way.
Right.
But
again, it's sitting on the other side of the aisle with that is, it's tough to accept.
Mm-hmm.
Really tough to accept. We had guys killed who had 4 or 5 kids, and you're just like, wait a minute. Single guys were saying like, fuck, it should have been me. Like, that guy's got a wife and kids. I got nobody. And it's, guys felt really guilty for not being there that morning in the midst of it. And I was telling them, like, listen, I don't feel guilty about being, like, maybe I wasn't, I was there, so I don't understand
so
what
you
you're
kinda
going through.
understand.
But the other part of that is I'm like, dude, I would rather have been anywhere else. One of our guys was in the Bahamas, literally, drink with an umbrella in it,
Yeah.
and had to immediately fly home. And he's like, all he wanted to do was get home. And I was like, dude, I would rather have been in the Bahamas.
People that were retired, felt like my dad is he was a sergeant in Queens, and he retired, 1,000 years ago. And, I think people like all in the South where they, like people from New York, they retire and they move to North Carolina or Florida or whatever. They were rallying, wanting to come up here and help. And it was, everyone wanted to be here.
That's how I met those guys from California. Huge contingent of Long Beach firemen came and just, boop, we're here. You were
that's great.
digging.
I used to work in Long Beach, so I
you
could
be-
see those guys
yeah.
doing that. Yeah.
You were digging literally on a pile early on, and to the left of you was a guy who you work with from Brooklyn or Queens or wherever, and then to the right there was literally a guy from Germany.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you're just like,
Thank you.
you're trying to
Yeah.
compute.
Right.
Seeing cops doing traffic detail around there from places I've never heard of.
Right.
And they're standing there again, hats on, uniforms, guns on, and you're just like, wait a minute.
It's kind of like the bagpipes, like anyone with whatever outfit they wear, they can join the line of the bagpipe parade, and they know the songs, and they might be in different outfits, and it kind of reminded me of that,
So I want to get back to my question though. So yeah, you're digging like that. Did you have any concern for your? Again, I understand it.
Listen, I can only speak for myself. In
Yeah.
my position,
Yeah.
my emotional state during all of that, I didn't give a shit if I lived or died.
Yeah.
It was just like, if I get killed, it's fine. You don't say that. I never say that, but you just walk around with that in your brain going like, how can I not feel that way?
No.
There's
I get that.
thousands
Yeah.
of dead bodies around me, and I should be one of them. I will say one of the hardest things was as every time we pulled a firefighter out, I was there when that guy was alive.
Yeah.
Right.
And now we're taking his dead body out. It was definitely kind of that transcendence into like where I should be in his spot, or this should be me. Somebody should be carrying me out.
All right,
and when we hit a certain spot, we actually hit a part of the North Tower lobby where they were finding pieces of the lobby where it was.
Right.
And a couple of bodies were coming out with that, and I'd be like, wow, today would be the day my wife would be being notified. Today would be the day my wife would be standing at the top of this ramp. And again, there's only a handful. There's less than 50 guys who were working and in these buildings that survived.
Right.
There are people that were guys coming in and firefighters coming in and in the periphery, but in those buildings and functioning and then coming out, there's not a lot. And again, it falls into the like, oh yeah, I was there, and I'm like, you just go, oh, okay.
Right.
Sorry.
Can I ask you about several times Bobby saying it should have been me, it should have been. Is that a healthy thing to even say? Because it shouldn't have been any of them, the survivors or the poor people who died. It shouldn't have been anybody. Is that to me that doesn't sound like a healthy thing to say. It shouldn't have been Bobby. I'm glad Bobby's here. It shouldn't have been any of them. But that's I don't know. To me that's.
I don't know if we can say if it's right or wrong. It's the way Bobby felt.
Okay, all right.
No, it's wrong.
I often say that feelings aren't right or wrong. They just are. It's what we do with our feelings.
Okay, all right.
It's
What
just because we
actions we
know
take.
him, and especially Tony. Like, I mean, I don't know. It feels this like self-worth thing. Like you should have a greater self-worth because you're Bobby Senn, and it's like you make everything better. You know, everywhere you go, that's all we ever hear about you.
It's
You know.
because there was a lot of work done and self-recovery and self-building to get to a point to be able to take what happened to me and do something better with it, and do good things out of something terrible.
You step up to the
Before
plate
that-
and do hard things all the time. Like one of the first times that I met Bobby was at a wake,
Desiree.
at Desiree's wake, and it was a friend of theirs that passed from high school, and no one knew what to do. I mean, I didn't know her well. I only met her a handful of times, but everyone that was at the wake, it was just overwhelming that they had this loss. And then and here comes Bobby Senn, and he stands up there and starts speaking, and you laugh a little, you cry a little. He nails it every time, and you're great.
I walk into a room and I see somebody who drew something. Like my nephew, my oldest nephew is, he's really getting into drawing and art. And I look at it and I go, wow. Or I walk into a museum or I walk in somewhere and I see a sculpture or something like that and I go, I can't do that. And there are people who can do that.
Yeah.
Like I always say, I'll never be a jockey or a gymnast. Be funny to watch, but
I saw that picture of you in the Speedo.
we won't talk about that. Lose all my validity of being sane again. I see things like that, or people do things like that, and I go, I could never do with that stuff, flipping and all that great stuff. It's something I followed. It was a passion of mine to write in college, and going down the path of English and writing. And as everybody knows on Facebook, I correct people's grammar all the time, just to be a pain in the ass. I really don't care that you misspelled it. Two, or there, and there.
Yeah,
but it's fun because of the reaction. And you get
Yeah.
called a grammar Nazi and everything else, and like, oh yeah, go fuck yourself. And my friend Pete does it all the time. He'll say something and he'll be like, you're an idiot, and I'll write you're the right way. And he calls me up. He's like, you're such an asshole. I know. Happy 9/11. See you later. And we hang up.
Yeah.
It's a gift for me, and all I can say is I'm able to do it. It just comes out of me.
Yeah.
It's like sitting down and writing. I asked John about Desiree, like, can I? And he was like, absolutely, because I can't.
Right. That's what I mean. You step up to the plate.
Well, and that wasn't about, it was honoring, she needed to be honored.
Mm-hmm.
I just went to a birthday party last week for one of my neighbors, turned 70, and the first thing I asked, I was like, who's toasting him? Because he deserves to be toasted. And they were kind of going back and forth, and like, the one son said to me, he goes, I can't do what you do. I can't do backflips or ride a horse that way. I can get up and speak and take what's in my heart and let it come out of my mouth and honor the people who need to be honored. And a lot of that has come from losing as many people as I have.
Yeah.
And death, unfortunately, being so present in my life.
Right.
I've had guys come up to me and go, it's unbelievable how good you are at funerals.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking like, hey, did you get that done? I brought a case of water to a wake, and I was like, make sure the family always gets water like once an hour.
Right.
Keep them hydrated.
Right.
Give them boxes of tissues. And like, how do you think of that? I don't, it's not pre-programmed. It's just from what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And Desiree deserved to be spoken well of. My neighbor Jerry deserved to be spoken well of and honored. And that's important to me.
Yeah.
I get disappointed in best men and bridesmaids and maids of honor when they don't honor their role in that and speak at a wedding.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And stand up and listen, you don't have to get everybody sobbing and crying,
Sure.
but just be like, wow, I'll remember that for the rest of my life.
Right.
I'll remember speaking well about that person. And that's just, it's an important thing to me. And some people literally are like, oh, the best man speech is on? I'll be at the bar. There'll be a short line. Some people are into cars. I'm into writing and talking about people. The
No,
wrong way.
I agree, because it unfortunately does happen a lot at funerals, but it should happen when they're still here to hear it.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, maybe they're hearing
And
it,
I
maybe they're not.
have
I
had
don't
it a
know.
couple of times at a funeral. Somebody comes up and goes, "Would you say something?" And you have to go. Literally, it's the off the cuff thing, and I go, "Okay." And then the self criticism comes in afterwards. Like if you're like,
Like,
"Oh
I
my
didn't know
God,
this person.
I can't believe, I didn't even know this guy." You're like, "I can't believe I said ain't." Or I said something where
Right,
you're just like,
right.
"Oh my God, I can't believe I said that." Or I tell a stupid story where you're just like, "Did he really just talk about what he just spoke about at this
No,
guy's
but those
wake?"
are the best. Because everyone's feeling it, and those are the best things because you need, and you're all going through it as a group. So the stories are great.
David Gaspari says, I was working for the New York City Sanitation Department. I got sent down 2 days after the collapse. That was sickening. The smell, the dust on the ground was so fine, like baby powder. I will never forget those days I was there.
Yep. And that stuff sticks with you. I was playing golf somewhere, not even in New York, and they were cutting up concrete on a construction site next to it, and two things happened. I could smell the concrete dust,
Yeah.
and then backing up, I could hear the backup alarms on the heavy equipment, and it was literally like getting stuck in one of those wormholes, right back there.
Man.
And again, coming home from that, it's like I'd walk into his office and I'd be like, "So check this out,"
Right.
and then he'd normalize it for me and explain it to me. And again, like I say, if it was on fire, you'd ask me what to do with it. Asking Mark would be okay, and all right, this is what I have to do to combat that, and he taught me how to deal with that. And you just keep deploying. It's like throwing shit on the wall. Eventually, it sticks. That's what you do with that. And I try to pass that along, in the peer counseling form with certain people of like, listen, I've been through that. It's normal. It's right. I just did it yesterday with my friend whose son is terribly ill in the hospital.
Being a psychologist didn't inoculate me from experiencing my own adversity associated with 9/11.
Sure.
I had just completed writing a book entitled Acute Traumatic Stress Management, and I was called in by the FBI to help out in the immediate aftermath of September 11th. And I remember at the end of a very, very long day, and then being called back in again to meet with the chief, I came home with my pair of boots that were covered with this gray dust. And I just put them in the garage in the place where we keep the boots. And sometime later, in the wintertime, I remember we went to Rocking Horse Ranch
Oh, sure.
with the kids to do some skiing on the bunny slope. And I remember I put those boots on, and I remember very, very well the dust coming off of the boots in the snow. And I had this flashback too, and feelings of guilt of that dust represents people.
Right.
It represents September 11th. And it was a very emotional time. How could I do this? How did I allow that to happen? Why did I take those boots? They should have just stayed in the garage. But as the dust came off, I felt terribly guilty.
Wow. Wow.
Just, I don't know if I ever shared that with
Yeah,
you.
you have.
I have. It was very,
And that
very
makes me think of if you have a relative. I bought one of my used cars that I have. I bought from somebody who it was as a result of a death. The father passed away, and they were selling the car. And I remember going to buy it, and I looked at it, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, I think I'm going to take it." And the woman started crying in the driveway, and I was like, "Whoa!" And she was like, "This was my dad's car. He had a heart attack. It was really quick." And I understood what she was feeling, having
Sure.
gone through that, and I said, "Listen, if you're not ready to sell this car, don't sell this car. Let me know when you're ready."
Mm-hmm.
She called me the next morning. She goes, "I'm ready because you said what you said." Because I got it. I
Right.
related to that.
Sure.
And I think we all go through that in one way or another. It's like, one of our friends who lost their brother and their slash son on 9/11, they just recently actually sold his car.
Just.
15 years later.
Right, right.
And they were still like, oh boy. But they were like, it's going to somebody good. It's going to a good place, and we're okay with it. It took them that long to where it was acceptable or okay, and that they
Yeah.
were okay with letting go of that.
Yeah.
It's like keeping somebody's clothes, I guess, when they pass away, your spouse. I mean, My grandmother couldn't get rid of my grandfather's clothes soon enough because it was a painful reminder.
Right.
She needed to make some change. Then there's other people. There were guys lockers in firehouses that weren't touched for over a year. Clothes still hanging over the door, opened and like hands off.
Wow.
I wonder if, and this sounds like an odd question, but do you find like the patients that you have, do you find like, because like I'm Irish and Tony's Italian, do you find like really big differences in the people that you help? Because like I could see my entire family doing that, like everything like out of here now, you know, like the Irish are like, oh, I'm not going to deal with it, and like I find that Italian people, they're like right there in the moment and they deal with it, and like we're like, oh, I can do this.
I can't say that I've noticed any
Okay.
significant differences among people.
Like I find like I'm one of those that like it takes me like a while till it'll be like 4 or 5 days later. I'm like, you know what, that like I'm really sad about that. Where you know Tony would be like, yeah, I was waiting for you to catch up on like Monday.
You know, there are
You
some
know.
stereotypes, but I can't say that I've observed it firsthand.
All right.
I would say from the trying to get someone, like if you were struggling with something, me saying like, listen, you need to go talk to somebody. It's okay to do it. And you're advocating from the, person to person to go see someone like Mark.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely some cultural things there. Like Italian households, it was like everything, everything stays in the house. We don't share our problems with anybody.
Okay.
Problems stay here.
Right.
We don't share. People say, you're not going to pay anybody to tell them my problems. My problems I'll figure out on my own. And I did personally find, the Irish guys are willing to sit and talk and chatter and whatnot, and Italian guys are usually, pretty stoic, and that comes from family, your upbringing, your roots. And neither is right, neither is wrong. You would like to see somebody be willing to open up and talk about it, but it's unfortunately it's either going to happen or it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But it would present itself that way.
Do you feel how close are you to being the guy you were before 9/11?
Never. My every aspect.
Was that ever the goal?
To get back? Oh, originally you just when it was out of denial. I wanted it to all go away, and I just wanted to go back to work and just, be the regular happy schmuck from Hicksville,
Right.
going to work, and just, I said, as I wrote about it this past week, is life was a little bit easier, prior, and I would hope that if this never happened, that my life would be as easy as it's looking back, as easy as it was.
Right.
Although, if I never went through what I've gone through, I wouldn't realize that my life was that easy.
Right.
Yeah, that is true.
There was a surrender point, and there's different categories, like the career aspect of it and going back to work. Once I knew that ship had sailed, then like even the pulmonologist was like, this is not happening. You're done. And even, sitting with, department psychologists and the doctors there, they were like, Bobby, and the chief medical officer was just like, you're done. You've done your career. Go home to your family.
Okay.
And, there was a fight in me with that. Like, no. I'm a young guy. I don't want this to be happening. I want to leave on my terms. Ha. And that's just the way that played out. It was a surrender point. You just went, all right, I have no control over that. But afterwards, you just want all the bad shit to stop happening in your head. And you fight for that. You eventually, for most of us, we achieve that. And then you just, taking his advice. Okay,
Right.
What are you going to do with it now? If I had gone back to exactly where I was with what has happened to me, that would be a tragedy.
Okay.
And I will quote one of my friends who said, you could have gone to 1,000 more fires or 1,000 more car accidents or whatever you'd go to at work. You'll help 100 times more people doing what you're doing this way
Oh,
than
okay.
you will going to all those incidents.
Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I guess that's working with patients. That's never the goal. It's just, okay, this happened. Let's make a positive out of this and let's move on. It's never getting back to normal, which was, before something like this happened.
You bring up an interesting point. We hear the word resilience so often. Resilience is defined as bouncing back, restoring oneself to their pre-morbid level of functioning by definition.
Right.
I think that's really, it's sad that we settle for resilience after a horrific event. If there's a way we can take adversity and grow from it and find something good in it, why settle for being the way you were when you can actually be better because of it?
Right.
So it's...
Okay.
Eric Fellon said after he was there, after the first tower fell, I was covered in soot. Everything was dead silent except for the sound of the odd high-pitched sirens all over that I never heard before and I couldn't identify. When I later learned that those were the sirens on all the fallen firefighters, I became haunted by the sound for months. Just the thought of those brave men and women and those hundreds of sirens cutting through the silent black-gray dust were them.
There's a piece of your air system that is, if you stop moving for X amount of time, it starts to alert. And that's usually for a firefighter that's down.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So many were down that it's called a pass alarm, that they were going off, and you could just hear them. They were going off because the battery life of them is pretty long. They were going off for a long time underneath that.
How long did they last? The siren.
I know that the entire first day they were going, but it's hours.
Okay.
You know, as long as whatever the battery life, the battery life was left in it.
You want to read that one too?
Oh, sure.
Go ahead.
Terry Burton, Rachel.
She was one who called before.
Yeah, Reichel.
Oh, okay. She said that my father-in-law, a retired NYFD, was in the hospital in the city when 9/11 happened. Following surgery as part of his cancer treatment, my, what's FIL?
Father-in-law.
Oh, sure. I knew it was something. My father-in-law lay in bed in the hospital alone because the roads were shut down and we couldn't get in to see him. Watching the names of his fallen brothers from Rescue 1, he gave up his fight for at this time, no doubt, to join his fire department family that had passed that day. Wow.
How'd you get in touch, or when were you able to get in touch with your wife? Because the phone lines
First contact was, first tower had collapsed. A very abridged story. We got out. We were at the corner of Vesey Street and West Street, which is on the northwest side of the property. And there was a guy standing there with a cell phone. And I said, "Does that work?" He said, "Yeah." And I literally whipped it out of his hands, called her at work, and I was like, "Hi, just called to tell you I love you." And she had no idea what was going on.
Okay.
She was in her office, and I was like, "Get to a TV and then go home, because that's where I'm going to try to reach you. I got to go. I love you." Hung up the phone. Second building came right down.
Jeez.
And we were under it. Went through that whole, trying to get out of all that mess all over again. Somebody, then all the phones were done.
Right.
Unless you were on a wired phone, and we were in the middle of the street at that point.
Yeah.
I'm going to say like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was able to get into like a building, and there was a phone there, and the only 800 number was actually, of all people, my father was at work, and I called him, and I was like, "Get a pen and write this down." And I started rifling off guys' names, because we still didn't know, is this over, is this not over, they can start nuking Manhattan.
Sure.
I go, start writing these names down. You probably never know this story either. And I started rifling off all the guys in my company, other guys I've seen. I go, I'm going to just rifle off names to you that these guys are all alive as of whatever time it is right now.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And then I saw my cousin. My cousin was working, and I said, "Call Aunt Peggy and tell Bruce is alive right now." I said, "But one of his guys is missing, and they're going to look for him." And he wound up they found him. He had a broken neck. He was laying next to the rig.
Oh, jeez.
So, crazy stuff. Go ahead.
You're live on the air. Who's this?
It's Brian from Florida.
Hey, Brian. What do you say?
What a hell of a day is what I say.
Were you? Where were you? Were you here?
No, I was actually down here in Florida, and it was one of the craziest things because I'd woken up. I was out of law enforcement. I was working a regular civilian job, and I was getting ready for work. And I put on the TV. My wife was already at work, and the news flash, and the tower was on fire, the first one. And they're sitting there talking about, well, it was a major accident and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, I watched the second one, and I'm looking at it just before the second plane hit. And I'm going, that's not an accident. And then the second plane hit live on TV, and I'm watching this, and I'm going, oh, my God. Now, having grown up on the island, there's no way you grow up on the island and not have friends and family that are in
That's
the
right.
New York Police Department, in the New York Fire Department. There's no way you don't.
Right.
You've got a connection somehow, some way. And I lost quite a few people that day.
Yep.
And when I watched those towers go down live, I knew I was losing people. So it hit all over it's one of those things where, oh God, even to this day it chokes me up.
Sure. Well, I know you're retired law enforcement. Where were you? Where did you work?
Well, let's see. Down here, I worked administration for the Broward County Sheriff's Office. Then I worked for my last gig was with the Florida Department of Corrections as well, a state law enforcement officer. But the one I'm most proudest of, a year to this day, after it happened, I was sworn in as a federal agent with the FAA.
Right.
Because there was no department yet for us. We eventually became the Department of Homeland Security.
Right.
And my job was to start training people to be able to do their jobs at the airport.
Oh, okay.
And you get people coming in, and you had some that took it like it's a job. The government was hiring; it's a government job. So, and there were those of us that were sworn agents that took it very seriously.
Sure.
This is not a joke. This happened. This happened. Our country was devastated. Don't look at this as it's just a job. It's not. People are going to look at you. They're going to laugh. People are going to look at you. They're going to make fun of you. It doesn't matter. You have a specific job that you are here to do. Do it. And some of my agents would look at me and go, "Why are you so stringent on this?" I said, "Because I lost quite a few people that day."
Mm-hmm.
I said, do you know what it's like to watch buildings come down and knowing you just lost people? And then not just that, but years later to have to go to funerals, friends' parents dying because they were battalion chiefs and they were at the ground zero. We've lost more men and women now, as far as firefighters go, than we did that day, just from the aftermath. And, I mean, with all the crap of having to go, Jon Stewart having to go up to the Senate and basically put them in their place, to give these people the funding they need.
Numerous times.
Jesus. And it's just... and it's funny because the gentleman there with the beard, the psychologist, how he was saying, one thing you had said earlier, I wanted to touch on. For the victims, it's a traumatic experience. Absolutely, you'll never forget it. But understand this: as a first responder, as someone running into that building, as someone running towards the gunshots, it's never just a regular call. It's never just another call. It is long periods of sheer boredom and dull, interrupted by absolute moments of terror. I mean, we always had a rule. At the end of the day, you go home. There's no way you work a job like that and it's a regular call or just another call.
Okay.
Because you never know what's going to happen. And, I can totally relate with the gentleman who was saying about digging bodies out. We in law enforcement, we see things you wouldn't want anybody to ever see.
Right.
The things that stick with me the most are the kids. We used to, when I was in DOC, we had a high profile guy that came in, and we had to get briefed on him. And for some reason, this one just stuck with me. I mean, worse than the others. And they were showing us his briefing paperwork because he had murdered his infant child, and because the kid wouldn't stop crying. And the pictures they were showing us were of this child on a morgue table. My daughter had just been born, and I'm associating, and I'm putting two and two and going, dear God.
Yeah, right.
So, it's hard. I mean, and unfortunately in this line of work, people don't talk about it. They don't talk about PTSD like they should. They don't talk about emotional support like they should. And it don't matter whether you're Irish, Italian, or whatnot, because there's a fear. The moment you say, I'm hurting, the moment you say, I need help, there's the persona of, am I showing weakness? Am I showing that I can't do the job anymore? Because to this day, there's not a day I don't see that kid's face on that autopsy table. There's not a day I don't see those towers going down. And they say you heal over time. Eventually it gets easy. You don't ever get over it. They say, but you get better. And I disagree. I know a lot of people that just, that's why I joke with you all the time. I'll call you guys up and I'll crack jokes, and I can hold my own on a comedy stage, because the one thing that's most internal about comics is that inside we are tragically dying. We got to turn it out.
Have you since you've retired, have you looked into getting help or venting this?
Oh, you want to talk about Greek tragedy there? Okay. Maybe we'll brighten the mood a little bit here. So I go to my doctor, and I say to her, I said, listen, I need you to give me a referral, something. I want to talk to a psychologist. I don't want a psychiatrist. I don't want pills. I don't want to be forced on anything. And, not a problem. They give me a name of someone to go to. I go. I sit down with him, and right on the desk, psychiatrist. Oh, crap. And he's looking at me. He goes, well, talk to me. What's going on? And I tell him basically my whole spiel. And he goes, all right, I'm going to give you these pills. I go, no, I don't do well. Pills don't work with me. I have adverse side effects. I said, well, you could read side effects of pills. For some reason, they come out in me. No, this is the lowest dose. You'll be fine. And I have to take it because I'm on Medicare for disability. I'm on Social Security disability and Medicare. So if you refuse treatment, it can cause problems. So I'm like, all right. He goes, take the pill, try it, see how it feels. Oh, good thing the kid was at school and my wife was asleep, because I was in the kitchen rocking and grinding my teeth for an hour. I was like, yeah, we're not taking these pills no more. So, and that's the thing. You try and find someone to talk to.
Right.
And it's not there. And I'll reach out to other people and Facebook, we'll sit there and I'll talk to my friends who are in law enforcement, and you can't get them to open up enough. And when you try and my thing is, I need someone to talk to in the middle of the night. That's when my demons hit. With the PTSD and everything, that's when my demons hit. My kid is asleep, my wife's asleep, and it's quiet.
All right, but you went through that too. You couldn't sleep at night, and you had so. What do? In the middle of the night, you just wait it out, or you try to go back to sleep, but then you called, Mark in the morning.
I just get up and this is before I started seeing somebody.
Okay.
There was just because I didn't know it was normal to be going through that, and then it's like, all right, maybe I'll try to go back to sleep. But in my case, it was going to sleep brought about wicked nightmares, talking to dead guys, and all that crazy shit. And I went, no, I don't want to do that. So I'd crank up the coffee pot at 3 o'clock in the morning, and one of my favorite things to do is write, and I would just sit in front of the computer and journal, and I would write about what happened to me. So telling him, and then telling Mark, telling Jerry Moriarty about, I write a lot, both of them, good. Journaling is good. You get it out. It's a method of coping with it and dealing and getting it out of you.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you have to feed into something like that and not, just go, try to push it away, because it's not going to go away. One thing what's his first name?
Brian.
Brian, one thing I maybe try to, feed into when I say this to a lot of other guys is, find something, and I think, you said I guess you do stand-up comedy, do you?
No. I in the past I doubt, but what I was saying in terms of I could hold my own if I wanted to.
Oh, okay.
It's the thing is, though, I'm to the point now where I don't do well in groups of people anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of,
big crowds.
Yeah, I don't do crowds. I can't. My head's still on the swivel from being in law enforcement. I'm still constantly looking around. I'm still hearing, I mean, no joke. My family and I, we were out shopping, and this is last year, and I was sitting on a bench outside a store. My wife and child had gone inside, and I'm sitting there on my phone, just minding my business. And all of a sudden, I see a gentleman come walking towards me. He looks at me, he walks past, and I went, oh, geez. And he's one of the former inmates. And so he comes walking back, and all he heard was the click of my everyday carry knife, and he turned around and walked the other way. And it's stuff like that. It took me 2 weeks to have the hairs on the back of my neck calm down, because my wife's like, what's going on? And I couldn't tell her. I mean, there's to this day stuff that has happened in that prison that I will never tell her.
Is your job,
that are made.
your former job, is there an EAP system, employee assistance program?
There's nothing. If the Florida Department of Corrections, unfortunately, is not the best place of employment. We'll put it that way. I mean, they're still fighting to try and get a raise after 10 years.
Well, maybe you said that you had, tried to go see a psychologist, and you unfortunately were sent to a psychiatrist. What about trying to re-engage that and just say, no, I would like to go see either a psychologist or a social worker or somebody, about coping with this, and not for the medication aspect, and try again?
I've tried, but the problem is, and unfortunately, it's just kind of my own conundrum here. I'm a right leg amputee. I don't drive. I don't own a car. I have a license, but getting somewhere is very hard for me. My wife, unfortunately, has to be the breadwinner. I have disability coming in, but no one's ever gotten rich on disability. So without her salary, we're up a creek. So my wife works long hours, and we got family, but they all work too. So trying to sync up. I mean, no joke. I just went for a physical exam the other day where Tony heard the outcome of that one. It took me 2 months of making appointments, canceling appointments, making appointments, canceling appointments to try and get in and see the doctor. I couldn't even get a taxi. I would call, we don't have any available. We don't have any available. How do you not have a taxi available? Okay. So it's one of those things where I finally said, something, I'm going to have to do it myself. I'm going to have to deal with it myself. In my home, I'm safe. In my home, I don't, how do I say it? When I feel those feelings you're talking about and you sit down and you journal, I'll sit down and I'll watch comedy. I'll watch something to make me laugh, because otherwise I'm raging. And I will be raging about, it could be the stupidest thing. From 30 years ago, I'm having an argument that I won with someone who doesn't even exist anymore in my life. It's that whole, if I was out in public now, I mean, public is not a safe place for me. For instance, we've gone on to try and keep things as normal as possible for my kid. We go to Disney a lot because it's an hour, 2 hours away from us. And I'm sitting there one day. I'm on an electric scooter because I'm 6'3", and because of the injuries I've sustained from an auto accident plus years of working in law enforcement and everything, I've got my back is shot. I have no hips. My knees are gone. So I get an electric cart. Now here I am. I'm 6'3". I'm built like an NFL linebacker. You can't miss me in a crowd. And we're in this very compacted area where people are walking by, and even my wife and child are all going on a ride, and I'm waiting for him to come off. And this lady's looking at me, and she's shaking her head. Now, and I'm looking at her, and she's no small person herself, and she's looking at me from the left, though. And she goes, maybe if you got off the cart, you'd lose some weight.
She said that?
Yes.
Wow.
To which the PTSD kicked in. I took off my prosthetic leg, handed it to her, and said, here, dumbass, maybe you'd like to take this home for a souvenir. 300 people stopped. All of them looking at her, all of them looking at me, and they all start laughing. Thank God they did, because the next thing would have been I would have been chasing after her on my electric cart with the prosthetic leg in my hand. So that's why it's just, I realize I've got to deal with things and handle them myself, because even if I go talk to a psychologist, you know, let's say I get there, it's an hour. You're lucky if it's you get an hour. Okay, great. You know how many years I need? I need someone that I can just sit down with, and that's why
it has to start somewhere,
Right?
And it's one day at a time. When I first started going to talk about September 11th, it eventually evolved into talking about, you know, the environment I grew up in, other things that have happened, and that's just, you know, I found out that's part of the process.
Yeah.
And it's
because I'm
it's
going
day,
on 10 years now.
It's the one day at a time model.
Yeah.
You know, and it's you have to start somewhere. You know, I'm not going to hit you with a quote, but it's a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And embracing that is first is to try to find somebody, you know, to talk to. And there are therapists that I know that will, you know, up here at least, that will do phone sessions. You don't even have to leave. You can do it, you know, they do face-to-face over iPads. I know one of the therapists I know does that.
Yeah.
So there are ways.
It's
just a matter of, you know, finding a way so that you can cope with that, you know, to start to, you know, free yourself of some of that pain. You know, I started talking to somebody in 2003. I still have coffee once a week with that guy, and this past week we talked a lot about what this week was going to do to us.
Yeah.
You know, I saw Mark in the hallway this morning. I was talking to him, and it doesn't have to be a full-blown session, but I know he cares, and it's about me getting it out. I get it out. He gave me a hug in the hallway, you know, and that makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah,
you know?
I can understand that.
And getting rid of that rage is really important, you know, because you're lucky you handed her your leg. I can't believe I just said that. You're lucky that you handed her leg and didn't beat her with your leg.
Really? You can't believe it?
You know?
Trust me, if you got to know me, you'd be like, yeah, that's Brian.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Really appreciate
All right, guys, listen.
Well, Brian, take his advice. Get on the phone with somebody, and because we'd like to see you get your ass up here one of these days and hang with us. So.
Well, I would love to do that. You know, but I don't know if I can afford to pay Southwest for 2 damn seats.
Take the train.
Start walking.
Yeah, listen. Take the train. Like I want to lose another limb. Come on.
Get that rocket attachment and come on up. But please, Brian, make a call and take care of yourself.
All right. Hey, you all take care.
Thanks for the call, Brian.
Be well, Brian.
All right.
See ya.
You too. Bye.
And like Brian brings up a point where he brings up situations where you can't talk to the person who's closest to you. He's like, I can't tell my wife half the stories that happen at work. Like what, from the perspective of the spouse, what do they do? Because they know something's going on. I mean, even though Brian or whoever is not telling a story that they need to talk about, I mean, it's no big surprise that something's happening in their mind. So like I wonder, were there support groups about people that, are living with the people that are going through so much pain and they feel like they can't talk to them about it, because that's something to go through too.
Well, you bring up a great point. Spouses are often hidden or secondary victims. In the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, you can actually be a family member of somebody who's experienced a significant traumatic event, had no direct exposure to the event, but vicariously, just by hearing your loved one who's been through it, you could be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. So,
wow, I didn't know that.
But I was also wondering if there's a way that they could develop some type of skill to help, to see, they're going through this, and how can I ask about this in such a way that, they can speak about it or something. It's just because it's so much, it's so overwhelming.
There's a lot that's been written out there about how family members can help people, help their loved ones who've been through traumatic events. It's a matter of being blessed with having somebody like that in your life, as Bobby does, and as I do.
Yeah.
I always suggest when I'm speaking to other firefighters, police officers, anybody in general, but especially girls who are in the business that we are in, you don't have to get into the gory details. I wouldn't go home and tell her about all the crazy shit that went on. I would just go home and say, we had a really, really bad night. I just need to lay low. I don't need to go shopping for curtains. I can't go pick out carpeting. I don't want to go to the grocery store. let's just hang on the couch. Let's sit in the backyard. I just need to do like something brainless and lay low.
Yeah.
Or go home and just be like, okay, I'm not going to cut the grass. I'm going to go play with my son on the front lawn and have a catch.
Right.
Or do something that way. And as much as you communicate with your kids too. Because your kids are going to absorb that even more.
Right.
You walk in and go, leave me alone.
Right, exactly.
It's got, like, I had a really bad day at work today. Give me an hour and we'll go, then like maybe we'll go play. I want to just eat something and get a little downtime with mom because I had a really hard day at work today, and let them see that. And that's why I found a lot of guys that were coming in, were guys that I would try to lead towards the light, were having their marital
Great
issues.
advice.
And it's just, you don't have to tell them, oh yeah, I got shot at 5 times tonight, just missed me, John, you don't have to, because that's just, all it's going to do is you're inflating your wife with all of this fear and all of the bad stuff when all she really wants to know is, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you say, like, how does a wife know what to do? I got told 1,000 times in that 18-month period, you need to talk to somebody. You are not who you are. Like the same thing with alcoholics, need to turn around and go, I have a drinking problem, or I have a drug problem, or I have a gambling problem. The same thing falls with that. You have to be ready to go. Yeah, I got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there's something dangerous goes on, and then there's some sort of intervention, like, you're doing something terribly dangerous. And that has happened. That's happened with guys that I worked with. Guys in the fire department definitely needed, like, okay, we're tying a rope around you. You are broken.
Yeah.
And they needed to be told that. But I say it all the time. It's communicate, communicate, communicate. How do you feel today? I feel like shit. My wife just has to look at me and she knows.
Right.
I'm a round peg in a square hole. I have an unbelievable marriage. And we feed off of each other's pluses and minuses and good feelings and bad feelings. And I know when she feels like crap. And I'm not one of those guys like, well, we're supposed to go to the movies tonight. Some people start like, oh, we're supposed to go out. Now we got to stay home. We don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
If I go, Chris, I feel like crap. I just want to stay home. She goes, all right.
Right.
We just roll with that
Mm-hmm.
and let the nonsense things, fall to the wayside.
Right.
Gina Conjemi-Coffin brings up a good point. She says there's anyone who worked, lived, went to school, or was in the area on 9/11, no matter what age, to start gather proof that you were there so that if in the future you have a health problem, you have the appropriate documentation to receive services through the WTC Health. The PSA I heard said funding is in place for the next 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
The people or companies or schools may not be around in 10, 20, 30 years, so get your documentation now, even if you are not sick right now.
Correct.
Wow. Yeah, that's good advice.
Register.
Right?
You have to register.
Right.
And if you're not sure of how to file, if you're filing for some sort of claim or whatnot, there are law firms out there, and according to the statute that was placed upon when the development of the Victims' Compensation Fund, it's all of them are only allowed to collect X amount, whatever the percentage is. I think it's 10 or 7, something
Wow.
like that.
Okay.
So it's a limit on them.
Right.
So they don't get to bludgeon you at whatever rate that they want to.
Wow, that's something. Wow, there's a lot going on today.
Yeah.
What? I don't know if you even want to get into this, but what do you feel is society or the country? What do you feel we've learned from this? What do you think we've? What do you? We were talking earlier before we went on about the disrespect that police officers are currently getting with the water and all that garbage. Again, we touched upon it earlier. When this happened, there was none of that. It was these people are heroes. I don't know personally. I don't know how we lost it, to be honest with you. But for these people that are doing these ridiculous things to the police officers now, it just boggles my mind. But
in my brain, my thought about all of that, and having worked in certain neighborhoods, and I'm not going to go into the political thing.
Good.
Rules are established, and you need to be a fan of your people who protect you. And I personally just don't see that the mayor of the city of New York does that. And I think that is where the problem lies, is that there's no support from above. And being a police officer is a tough job. I have family members that are cops. Some of my closest friends are in law enforcement, and it's a brutal, brutal job. You know, and as what was his name, Brian? Is that who we were on with before?
Gold, yeah.
Brian said, you know, there's downtime, and then all of a sudden it goes to an explosive event. You know, and the same thing in the fire business. You're doing your thing in a firehouse, take care of tools, basic maintenance of things that you work with, and then bang, you're out the door, and your heart rate is at 10,000. And that has an effect on you. The support structure that's behind that for police officers is very fragmented. There's a lot more focus paid attention to productivity as opposed to taking care of our police officers who maintain the streets.
Yeah.
They're expected to go out and take care of business out there. You know, Dennis Cross, battalion chief who was killed left from our firehouse that morning, his mantra was take care of the men and the men will take care of you. The police department of the city of New York does not take care of its people, bottom line. And I'll argue that with anybody. And it's fact. There's no support structure for them. And I guess it's some of the closest people in my life. They just they love law enforcement, but they hate where they work and who they do it for in some cases.
Wow.
The disrespect thing for police officers, I think that's a residual of current city government, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Sure.
How it transitioned, I think it's because of change in power. Who was in charge then? Who was in charge under Giuliani's administration? You didn't mess with the police department.
Yeah, right.
He was hard on them with their productivity, but he also protected them with certain things, not with raises and finances, but he, was not willing to, throw them under the bus that way. And it's a stressful job. It's a brutal, brutal job. You rarely get called for something that's good that's happening.
Right.
Maybe you'll deliver a baby. And even that is like, holy shit, we're delivering a baby.
Yeah, right.
The fact that you think that's not like something that's easy or something.
You don't get called for, my son got an A on his test, celebrate with us. No. You get called because my son is overdosing on heroin
in a tree
the bathroom.
Calls.
Yeah. Never.
All right. Well, you guys have been nice enough to stay a whole extra hour more than originally planned. So
yeah, thank you.
Very nice. Can't thank you enough. Is there anything that we didn't touch upon? I mean, we've covered a lot here, and I hope we covered everything you guys wanted to cover. But if there's anything, and we still have 20 minutes. It's, again, up to you if you want to stay. But the show ends in 20 minutes. If there's anything you guys want to touch upon, go ahead.
All I want is just take care of yourself today. A lot of people tune in because they're hurting and they want to get through the day. Get through the day, take care of yourself so that you can take care of your family. Whoever said it before, Terry, I think, said it, they're having ice cream for dinner.
Yeah, right.
That's the thing. Do that. Take your kids out and go have ice cream for dinner, because I will tell you that if there was something that my dead friends could do, it would be to do something fun with their families if given one more day.
Sure.
If you're feeling shitty, you're feeling crappy, do what you need to do to protect yourself. That's what I do. That's what I do today. It's what I do. Like that movie starts playing in my head September 1st, and like tomorrow, Friday, it's like somebody just and turns it off.
Starts
so
September
it's not
1st,
a constant.
And tomorrow it's quickly.
Not quickly. It's just slowly. Like there'll be phone calls. Like there's phone calls I won't get to today. That all the guys that I worked with, we communicate with each other. Friends I grew up with and whatnot. Everybody, people reaching out, answering some text messages. It's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And you want, I want to talk to everybody that has reaches out to you, because I know in their own way they're hurting.
Yeah.
And it's just it's do what you need to do to get through the day. It's take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to just go home and lay low, then go home and lay low.
Okay.
Don't go home and go, ooh, big, Shirley chimed in before, like big bottle of bourbon.
Right.
You got to watch out, because it will, suddenly that other side of you will emerge and you lose your control. And that's when usually you wind up jammed up or in trouble and divorced or in jail.
Did you have any guilt once you decided to stop going into the city and to all these ceremonies? Was that an issue in itself for you?
More anger, because I stopped going because of the dog and pony show.
Oh, okay.
There's a ceremony that the fire department pipe band does at night, and the first couple of years, it was really intimate.
Sure.
And the band played, and only like guys on the job knew, and 9/11 guys knew, and they played in front of Engine 10, Ladder 10, as the sun went down, and it was really, really moving. It is like a madhouse down there, and I'm just not going to go stand in a crowd of, throngs of people up with their phones like this, and I got to get a video of this. You don't go there to video it. You go there to embrace it and experience it, take it in.
Because it's yours.
Why am I standing like, the killing field behind me and absorb what's going on and not be like, add it to your list of, what did you do this summer? I went to the Eiffel Tower and I went to the Louvre. Oh, and I went to the sunset ceremony at Ground Zero.
Right.
And I just can't do that. I can't do that. So I don't really go down there to begin with because of the whole selfie thing and people smiling and people riding by. You see me write about that, dogs taking shit and people, it's like mind blowing.
I agree, yeah.
And I'm like, this is like, you open your mouth at Pearl Harbor on the Arizona, and there was somebody, a representative of the National Parks Department, in your face.
Yes, I've seen it.
And they are like leash correcting you, like you will.
Yep.
Total line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a place of, of mourning.
Right.
That doesn't happen down there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're going to New York. And listen, I have friends that come in and they go, we went. They cry for hours. They go, they need another day to digest it all, and they feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I had the same experience when I went to the Holocaust Museum.
Yeah.
That knocked me on my ass.
That place is hard.
Can you imagine walking around there and taking a selfie in the Holocaust Museum?
No.
Hey, Tony, come here. Hey.
No.
I'm looking at these people like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
And they're smiling. You're smiling. And again, what I see when I go down there versus what everybody else sees. Everybody else sees, the Oculus and these museums and all this, the big tower and all that. I still see a smoking pile of shit and dead bodies all over the place.
Right.
Does that go back to what you said before, though? This is how this is how they feel. You mentioned Steve Kaleo earlier. Steve Kaleo was a guy I went to high school with, one of the funniest guys to this day that I've ever known. And so is it possible that somebody's just remembering how funny this guy was, and they want to get a picture of the name, and they're smiling because they're thinking of him? No.
No. That would equal up. Then that everybody was killed was a stand-up comedian, because they do it constantly. The phone out and this big smile, and I'm like, what are you smiling about?
Well, right.
I actually watched a girl. I watched a girl, like, she went and stood in front of a name, and instead of her hand on the name for like, this is whoever it is to me, she was like, like the whole thing. And I was like, I walked by and I said it loud enough. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Right.
This isn't a modeling shoot.
No, that I understand. Like just to show that it was my tourist stop of the day, and I'm taking a selfie. But in that case, if it's somebody you know and cared about, and they thinking of them brings a smile to their face, is there a difference?
It happens way too often for that to be
okay. All right.
And it happens way too often for it to be like being self-conscious about it. No, it's a genuine like, hi, we're here. Like I watched the selfie stick
sure,
come out, like,
sure,
and we're here smiling like.
Because people do it at cemeteries now too. They'll take a picture of their father's headstone with a smile on their face next.
Totally different. I think that's totally different. That's where he's buried. That's where he is. That's your time and your place, and that's his area.
Okay.
You're in a place with 2,000 names. And everybody walking around there is like, it's like, have some respect for what happened there. That's the scene of the crime. Could you, okay, let's put this. That guy who died, whoever you're talking about, and taking a picture, let's say that guy died in a car accident on Northern State Parkway.
Sure.
Those people who go put the flowers and whatnot there, are they going to stand there as a big group, like around the tree, with this guy wrapped his body around and take a picture smiling?
Okay.
If you do that, you should be in his office.
Yeah, it's really like going to someone's wake and doing a selfie at the coffin. It's just so no. There's so many people in there that you should just be respectful and be there in the moment and not worry about what you have on your phone.
National mourning. It is an environment where and a place we go to that you go, wow, everything I saw on TV, all those crazy videos and all of that stuff that went on and the stories that come out, the things that I say, and you stand there and you go, I'm going to smile at a photo here. No, it's solemn and quiet. It's not, it's not going to the, oh, look, the T-Rex, in the museum. Mm-hmm. You're at a place where thousands of people were murdered violently. And to stand there and smile, I said, some guy's riding his bicycle through there.
Yeah.
I actually got...
And you're still standing on it.
I got unbent about people eating their lunch there because somebody said to me, well, maybe they're just sitting there reflecting and eating. And I go, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And again, that's one guy's opinion.
Sure. You're live on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Tony, how you doing? It's Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Good. I just wanted to go ahead and share my experience with what happened
Sure, go
years
ahead.
ago.
Okay.
I was down in Lower Manhattan at the Fulton Fish Market. I was still working at the scale company. I had to service a customer down there, and me and him were just talking away, and then we felt it felt like a mini earthquake. And that's when we didn't know what happened. That's when the first plane hit, and then all the radio stations were saying it was a Cessna, and that's what we all believed.
Right.
And the only thing I could say to myself was, well, you let me get out of here. All that's going to mean is going to be traffic, fire trucks, police. But the thing that just bothers me was that I came into work late that day. My next job that I was supposed to do right after the Fulton Fish Market was to service the restaurant at Windows of the World.
Wow.
And I remember I was supposed to check out a Cardinal bench scale for their food. I actually remember the service call. And, certain people say that, things delayed certain people's days or everything changed that day where the people were supposed to be there and they didn't make it in. And I'm just glad that, I was one of those people that just delayed my day somehow. And, cause I would have been there and on the floor where you couldn't get down.
Right.
From that day, I've had a fear. I will not go purposely to visit anywhere near where the World Trade Center is. I actually have a deep-rooted fear of Lower Manhattan. Ever since that day, I will not. People say let's go to the city and hang out, and I'm like, I'm good. No, thank you. So I just wanted to, share my experience with what happened on that day. And then after I wanted to add what followed was I ran out of there, and then I'm listening to the radio what was going on and hearing all the reports. I just made it to the Manhattan Bridge when they said that the second plane had struck. And in my mind that day, I was freaking out. I was like, "Oh my God, this is not a coincidence." I thought that the bridges were next.
Sure.
And I did my best to. I uncautiously drove my work van. I took outside view mirrors. I wasn't thinking, but I just wanted to get over that bridge and get out of there and get away. And like I said, it's something where it deep-rooted a fear into me of that whole day, and it's bothered me ever since.
And so you haven't been to the city or that area in the city since?
Since then, no. Up until actually recently, where I had no choice, because once again I had to do a job down there where it entailed placing scales around the area, I guess to check vehicle weights as they go into the buildings down there.
Sure.
And one of the scales was located, I believe, like Washington Street. It was just so close, and I'm looking up at the new building, and that day when we were working on the scales, I actually had a panic attack because for some reason that day I'm down there, we're putting in the scales. They had 3 jets that passed over at a height, but they were to spray like red, white, and blue. And the thing was, I had my coworkers look at me because I went into like a weird panic mode. But that was about 2 weeks ago. But before then, I never been down there. And my whole thing is, if I don't have to be down there, work made me, have to be in that place about 2 weeks ago. But if I don't have to be there, I never want to go down there. And I haven't been down there since then. I have no plans on wanting to be down there. I have an uneasy feeling.
Well, Well, all right. Well, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you never went down there that day. And we appreciate you and you are a comedian that plays here in the club often, making people laugh. So we're glad you're still here. But I personally hope you can get through that eventually and through that fear and be whether it's there or anywhere else, be able to go without fear.
Right. So I just wanted to share my experience with today and all.
Yeah, thanks,
So,
Jeff. Thanks a lot for that.
All right. You guys have a great day and God bless. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hang in
Take
there,
care,
brother.
buddy.
Thank you.
Hang in.
Bye.
All right. All right. So, yeah, Mark, I didn't ask you if there was anything that we didn't touch upon today that you wanted to just. We have about 10 minutes left.
There is a thought that I have is in terms of a takeaway from today. We're all very careful about our physical wellness and our bodies, but we don't place enough emphasis on our emotional well-being. We really need to focus more. According to the World Health Organization, the number one form of disability in the world is depression.
Mm-hmm. Number one?
Number one,
Wow.
depression. So that should tell us something. We need to put more emphasis on our emotional well-being as much as we do as our physical.
Sure. Thank you. And again, saw the Sessions live show. Loved it. Known Bobby for a long time. He's just the greatest. And even when we filmed our little session, it helped. It was filming a session, but it still helped. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. It's really something. LernerandSenn.com, National Center EmotionalWellness.org. Thank you guys, and thank you for sticking around for the extra time today. Thank you guys for the calls. Thank you for letting us do this today. You weren't totally for it, and you were your mic's been on all day, but I'm glad.
I shut it.
I know you did, but I appreciate you letting us do this because you weren't. No, because you weren't.
There's no letting.
What's that?
There's no letting.
Well, there's some letting.
It's not my thing.
Well, that's the thing. But you let us do it. As the third person here, you still were okay with us doing it. So I appreciate it, and I'm saying thank you.
You're
prick.
welcome, you jerk.
He speaks. Do you have any? Where are you guys heading? Do you have anything coming up that you're heading? No. Okay.
All is unfortunately quiet.
Oh well.
We should be very busy, and we say it constantly at lunches. We should be busy, because it should be people in positions of authority, in either companies where people are subject to stress, and even like at work, taking care of your people going through what they're going through at home. Let's take care of our people. You say it all the time. Greatest asset is your people.
Does a call like Brian's make you guys, reach out and say, where does he, or who was he working for? Let's get in touch. What did he say? The correctional facility? Do you guys, you guys would make a call to them and say, hey, I spoke to somebody over here. I think, you guys would benefit from our program.
You'd be surprised how hard it is to give it away. I had the privilege of sitting down with the commissioner of police, actually the deputy commissioner at the time, and chief of department, and said, I'd like to volunteer my time to respond to calls of tragedy.
Volunteer your time?
I'd like to give my time away.
Okay.
And I was essentially told, no, thank you.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're dropping the ball. They're totally, completely dropping
People
the ball on
don't.
this.
People do not want to open a can of worms. They don't want to deal with intense, raw emotion.
I don't
It's
understand
overwhelming.
that. I used to work for Marriott, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but one of the things when you work for a major hotel is people that do want to end their life, they often will go to a hotel. They don't want their child to find their body. They check into a hotel, and then you realize in the morning, if someone's not checking out, typically it's not that, but often it is that there's someone who, they took their life in the hotel room. And so you, as someone who runs a hotel, you don't drop the ball. You have a system in place because it really affects the workers. The housekeepers and housemen that have to go in there and realize what's going on, the crew. It's difficult. They have to open up the door, and they know that person didn't check up. Is it going to be, or check out? Is it going to be this door that I'm going to find someone? it really is a difficult thing. And so it's set up, you know, and so I just feel like these businesses, it is a business, like running in a police department is a business. There are people in charge that are dropping the ball.
Well, you said it before. I said about flu shots. If they were giving out flu shots for free, there'd be a line out the door.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell the teachers, get flu shots so you're not sick, so you're taking better care of yourself. Everybody wash your hands 1,000 times. And there's disinfecting stations everywhere, and I see it all the time, and I laugh. But there's never anything about, as Mark and I have said ad nauseum this morning, is what are you doing to take care of your people with what they're going through?
Right.
He said it, the leading cause of disability is depression. How much money, and again, you go back to money, is how much money are corporations spending keeping people out of work?
Right.
And I learned this from him, and I'm sitting there going, why would they not be making an investment so that people are better taking care of themselves? For the amount of money that they're spending on disability, put a therapist on staff or on call or on retainer, whatever you would want, that you can go, hey, listen, you need that, you can reach out to them, and it's completely anonymous.
Right.
Oh, that's what I wanted to ask before. You said something about podcasts. And you guys also said, how a lot of people don't want to come out with their issues because it might be frowned upon as a sign of weakness. But do you think if you did like a podcast, because, we talk about, social media and whatnot, people get brave behind a computer and they'll type in, anything political or whatever it is. But do you think if you did something like a podcast, people would type in their issues, or somebody like Brian would finally, get brave enough to make a call because nobody's seeing their face, they don't have to say their name if they don't want to? Do you think that something like a podcast would help that, or
Is this considered a podcast?
Yes.
Okay. My answer from the layperson is yes, because you had two guys call in today who don't know me,
right,
but they can relate. And then Mark said a few things, and they chimed in about that. And it's you go into a room of 100 people, and my attitude is if one out of that 100 acts on it and goes, wow, I think I'm fucked up.
Yeah.
Then we did our job.
Sure.
It's whatever, ounce of prevention, pound of cure mentalities. You'll get people who have gone through something, who might take care of themselves a little bit better and go, wow, I need to talk about this. I do have dreams about it. I do have nightmares about it. I am avoiding certain things.
Yeah.
As both of these guys were saying, their anger coming out, their fear coming out. And it's all like I can see right through them going like, yeah, those guys can talk to somebody.
Right.
And there might be calling up to say, well, I'm going to call up and see if I do need to talk to somebody. And they might not ask you, like, am I broken? But they might ask you enough questions where they're asking you subliminally. Because I know I did that for a long time.
Right.
Without that. Like, what about this whole, I really don't sleep too much. Well, why? And I go, well, I keep having these really crazy nightmares. And they go, you're blinking from my end of it, and they go, yeah, that's symptomatic of you're going through something, and you're holding on to it, and it's chewing you away. I was used the reference, especially with cops and firemen, because we need to speak in pictures, because we're not the sharpest tools in the shed. And it's like a Super Bowl covered in little X-Acto knives. And it's like, this was the murder scene, this was the bad car accident, this is the kid who got hit by a car and died,
right.
This was that terrible fire where the 4 kids died. And you swallow it, and what does the Super Bowl do when it hits the floor? It doesn't stop. It just keeps going. And as it's going through you, it's just shredding you from the inside out. Eventually, it's going to win.
Right.
And I had started looking at my own life that way in a picture of going like, yeah, how many Super Bowls covered in razor blades have I swallowed? A bunch of them.
Wow. Yeah. Although I have to say, I wouldn't mind seeing one thing I like to see killed is that fly. My apologies for that fly that's been flying around here this whole damn show. That thing's driving me nuts.
It's one of my dead friends tormenting the shit out of me.
All right, so LernerandSenn.com is the best way to find you guys and reach out.
LernerandSenn.com or the National Center for Emotional Wellness.org.
There you go.
Or reach out to me via Facebook, easy to find.
Yep.
And you can reach out to Mark also.
Absolutely.
And we're both local and willing to,
but
if we can help put something together to better take care of your people, we're in.
But local, but will travel the whole country.
We have
right?
traveled
Everywhere.
to Vegas. We have traveled to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to go back to Chicago. That's still kind of up in the air. Independently, I've been to half the states in the country, and Mark has been to Europe.
Oh,
as far
nice.
as Europe.
Wow. Okay. There you go. Very nice. Thank you guys for hanging out with us for this extended show. Thank you guys for sticking around the whole time.
An honor and a pleasure.
Likewise,
Privilege.
pal. Thank you again to Eric. Thank you to our sponsors who we didn't mention today. Bella Vista Pizza, Gina Kajemi Coffin, licensed real estate broker. And thank you guys again for sticking with us for 3.5 hours. Really appreciate it and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. We'll be back tomorrow at our usual time, 11 a.m. The three of us will be here. We may have some guests on Friday, working on possibly David Clark, who does a Billy Joel tribute band, working on getting some of the band members in here, and they're going to play for us, hopefully. We're still working on it. Do we have any guests tomorrow? I don't think so, right?
I don't think we do.
Okay. And hang on tight. Tonight at 7:30 is the Three's Company radio show with Bonnie Scalisi, Jim Raya, and Mandy Jones. And then tomorrow morning, the Long Island Breakfast Club returns tomorrow morning at 9:30, followed by us at 11:30. And then immediately after us is Let's Eat Long Island with Chef Felix. George Gallo and Darren Dillon tomorrow night at 7:30, followed by Limo Talk with Graz at 9 o'clock. Again, thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Hope you are okay the rest of the day, and we'll see you tomorrow at 11. See ya.